Hi there. A little bit of a different one this evening. Me and Fishy, are going to be looking at Rolemaster Unified, the latest incarnation of the venerable Rolemaster system, which has been around longer than probably the parents of several of my viewers. Uh, so I will give a mo and we will bring him in.
So we now have a Drut. So I shall unmute Drut so she can be heard on my stream and say, welcome, Drut, to Fish Not Fish, unleashing bar guests.
Hello, Fish. I actually did turn my microphone off because I'm not a savage um, on the shared chat, so you were good anyway. We were double wrapping that. So, yes,
Good,
I've
good,
done my
good,
little
good.
intro explaining what we're doing, why we're here. Took less time than yours because I haven't gone into the history of role playing games.
I didn't go into the history of role playing games, just the history of a role playing game. Just
Yeah.
one.
Uh huh. Yeah. Thousands of these.
One's quite enough.
So, what are we doing? What are we doing? Where are we going? What's
Okay, so
going on?
yeah, we're
Or something.
at the moment we're talking about the game world that I decided to come up with for Rolemaster Unified and how Rolemaster helped me to come up with this.
Mm-hmm.
So the first thing it did, with 23 races, I started thinking, which of those races do I want in my game? What's going to be common? What's not going to be common? Where are they going to be? So, and I apologize, by the way, if the sound of my 3D printer is at all interfering. I don't know how much it's coming through on the microphone, but it
Only a
should be
tiny
finished fairly soon.
bit,
I'm
and
just
now I
printing a
know
thermal
what it
detonated
is.
dice cup.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah. So the first thing I decided was that I decided that sea crow, which are a sort of an intelligent ape, I suppose. I mean, we're an intelligent ape, but these ones are still furry. Sea crow pirates roam the seas, wreaking havoc and inhibiting trade. Let's just jump
Okay.
to the sea crow, who are on page 42 of core law, so we can get a look at what they look like. They look a little bit like Yeti to some extent, white furred, blue skinned primate types, ape like creatures with dark grey or blue skin and a pelt of thick white hair growing on their head, neck, and shoulders, and arms and legs, if you believe the artwork. But we
Yeah.
won't go into that. So
Really
they
paved.
have night vision. Yeah, they have night vision. They are multiply jointed and agile, giving them a bonus on physical maneuvers that depend primarily on their arms, including melee, throwing, and climbing. But they are inept at swimming, which is odd for a creature known as a sea crow. But there you go. They are primarily a water going race. And they are a quite aggressive race, so I decided, yeah, um, let's go with them as pirates. So
Okay.
essentially, these are waterborne nomads, and they are pirates and raiders who they at the moment I've not got a sea crow nation anywhere. I've only got the shipborne. Maybe there is a homeland somewhere that they came from. In Rolemaster lore, they are probably related to creatures called Garks, who are not a player character race, but are, I think they're in creature lore. But Garks are more primitive and aren't sailors. So it's possible that like Garks are to Sea Crow as, say, gorillas or chimpanzees are to us. So maybe I'll put in a Gark, a primitive Gark nation somewhere that the Sea Crow come from. The second decision that I made was about goblins. Goblins are obviously a standard, fantasy role playing games without goblins. Is it really even a fantasy role playing game if it doesn't have goblins in it? You have
Mm-hmm.
to wonder. The answer is yes, it is. Um, Goblins in this world are not well liked, but the rare hobgoblin led tribes are responsible for most of their bad reputation. Goblins are disorganized and envious, such that they will sometimes align themselves with stronger races as servants or soldiers. So, goblins themselves, while they are potentially troublesome, uh, can be dealt with. However, where you get goblin tribes that are being dominated by the larger, more vicious hobgoblins, that's when they start to really cause problems. Kobolds, who are close relatives of goblins, uh, are smart enough to stay away from hobgoblins and therefore are even more likely to be found in civilized company. But again, kobolds are not, they're not really a civilized realm as such. I didn't look at the traits of goblins, did I? So goblins
No.
have dark vision and decreased size. They also have night vision, so they can see very well. They can see up to 10 feet with no penalties, even in complete darkness from their dark vision. And their night vision means that they can see in dim light equivalent to nighttime conditions as well as a human can see in daylight. So low light, they're great. And they can even see a bit in total darkness. Goblins are mechanical prodigies. They get bonuses for mechanics skills when dealing with mechanical devices, but they have a light sensitivity, giving them big penalties when in bright light equivalent to direct sunlight, penalties even on cloudy days or even on in shaded conditions or very cloudy days. In full shadows, such as under storm clouds or heavy tree cover, then they get no penalties. Kobolds, similar, again, decreased size, dark vision, night vision, same as their kobold as their goblin cousins. They get slightly less light sensitivity penalties. They have light sensitivity 2, whereas goblins have 3. Interestingly, these are kind of the opposite way round to most games because they don't get the mechanical bonuses that goblins get. Whereas in most games, it's the other way around. Kobolds are given bonuses either just with traps or sometimes with artifice in general. But kobolds do have natural weaponry. They have claws, which allow them to use a small claw attack with unarmed combat skills.
Okay.
Next up, I suppose we should take a look at hobgoblins because hobgoblins are, we already know hobgoblins dominate some
Well, they have
goblin
come up a
tribes and
couple of
cause
times.
trouble. They're bigger than goblins, obviously. They do not have the reduced size, diminished size trait. They're just medium size. They have better dark vision than their kobold cousins. Much the same night vision and an even lower light sensitivity. They suffer a penalty under bright light equivalent to what a goblin would have in shaded conditions. And in shaded conditions or serious overcast, they have no trouble whatsoever. But they are, a vicious and violent race. From time to time, goblins birth unusually large offspring who will grow into much larger adults whose skin has a muddy tinge. So hobgoblins are actually not a species in their own right as such. They are a development, a mutation from a fairly stable mutation, but a mutation from goblins. So any goblin tribe could theoretically spawn a hobgoblin or two in a generation, and those hobgoblins may well grow up to begin to dominate the tribe and send them in the wrong direction, letting you in your game have goblin tribes that have been peaceful and not a problem suddenly start kicking up and causing trouble because, oh look, we've had a hobgoblin grow up. You can even, if you're that way inclined and you like slightly darker themes in your games, you can have the adventurers hired to take out a young hobgoblin before he gets old enough to dominate the tribe. Then you get into the fun of will your characters kill what is essentially still a child for the sake of the future peace of and stability of the area. Fun stuff that you can do. So moving on from them, the next obvious thing is orcs. Where do orcs stand in our game?
Well, you've got
Orcs
five
in
varieties.
Rolemaster are pretty much yeah. Orcs in Rolemaster are pretty much what you would expect orcs to be, although there are variations on them. So all orcs have dark vision to some extent. All orcs have night vision. All orcs have some degree of light sensitivity. And then the Scrug, which is one type of orc, they are large. So these are sort of bigger, meaner orcs. But the Scrug are penalised in other areas. Then you've got the Vard. Those are four-armed orcs, which is to say that they have 4 arms, not that their arms stop at the elbow. And those have a form of ambidexterity, enabling to use any of their 4 hands equally well for all maneuvers. So we've got in orcs, we've got greater orcs, we have got grey orcs, which are the more intelligent ones, we've got scrug, we've got lesser orcs, and we have got vard. See how they officially describe these. Greater orcs are tough and cunning, able to operate in daylight without penalty, and often the leaders of orcish tribes. Can you say Uruk-hai? I think you can. Grey orcs are highly intelligent, though they use that genius for evil and dark things. Many are spellcasters, especially sorcerers, clerics, and magicians. Grey orcs really fill the role of the, quote, half-orcs and goblin men from Tolkien. The origin of the half-orc in Dungeons & Dragons is that one throwaway line in Tolkien, essentially. And there are lots of arguments to be had as to what it actually means. Generally, I think most people accept that the half-orcs and goblin men were magically created hybrids, rather than just that an orc could breed with a human. Then we have lesser orcs. Lesser orcs are the standard orcs. They're the ones who they are more light sensitive, and they like to hide from the sun, live underground, come out at night, that kind of stuff.
They're very Morlock.
Scrugs, yeah. Scrugs are as dim-witted as lesser orcs, but distinguished by their great size, often mistaken for ogres or trolls at a distance. While most are not disposed to being chieftains, scrugs can often be found as the bodyguards of orc chieftains, though they have no regard for any other living being, even other orcs. And finally, vards, the 4-armed mutations of greater orcs, but they keep to their own kind and are rarely encountered with other breeds of orcs. So you're not likely to find vard amongst an orc horde, but you might have a small tribe of vard somewhere that are, as I say, they are essentially greater orcs, so they're Uruk-hai with 4 arms, and that is not something that you necessarily want to be messing with. So in this world, orc society, led by the strong, as you would expect, almost always greater orcs, but with grey orc advisors and ministers. Unusually, grey orc rangers are also common, and they often serve on border patrols and in search parties, where they use the 3rd-level Beastly Ways spell Wolf Senses to serve in lure of dogs. Wolf Senses does pretty much what you would expect it to do. It gives you the senses of a wolf. So you've got the tracking smell, the improved eyesight, that kind of stuff. So as a ranger, it's quite a nice way of operating. So I just like the idea of these orc rangers who, rather than having pack hounds or something, when they find something of interest, they will cast wolf senses and start tracking themselves with their own senses. So next up, in many of the coastal areas, they are dominated by the Solagir, whose violent natures are capable of driving off Sequel raiders. Solagir are lizardmen, basically.
They're rather nice.
Textured jade scales shimmer on the hide of the amphibious Solagir, interrupted by fin-like ridges rising along the spine. So, point of RPG history again. I've never had this confirmed anywhere, but I am 80% certain that the Elder Scrolls series of games was originally inspired by Rolemaster. They have said in the past, way back when, back in the era of Morrowind, Elder Scrolls 3, they have said that Tamriel started out as a tabletop game setting, and then they used it when they got into video game design. They used it for the first of the Arena, the first of the Elder Scrolls games. They used the game setting that they've been playing in tabletop. It's generally assumed this is Dungeons and Dragons because of Dungeons and Dragons' ubiquity in the in the hobby. But there are a number of things that make me think this is not the case. Firstly, Rolemaster has always had a class called a Shadowblade, and so has Elder Scrolls. Rolemaster has always had the Solagir, who are very like the lizard man race in Elder Scrolls. I mean, Argonians, yeah. They are very Argonian indeed. Rolemaster has always had cat folk, the Khajiit in Elder Scrolls. And Rolemaster and Elder Scrolls skill system has always been more reminiscent of Rolemaster than it ever has of D&D, which at the time when the Elder Scrolls games were first being made, didn't even have a skill system. So my personal theory has always been that those guys were not playing D&D; they were playing Rolemaster when they came up with Elder Scrolls. That a bit of an aside there. So the Solar Gear, they have natural armor, um, and natural weaponry because they've got scales and claws. They have sight gecko. Now, the way they've handled this in Rolemaster Unified, rather than listing the specific details of that vision and senses on a particular race, they have instead categorized them into a number of advantages and given different races different advantages. So there's different variations on sight. They have the one that is labeled gecko. These permit additional detail close up as well as good depth vision and do not lose color vision in dark conditions, though normal penalties for darkness still apply. They gain a +10 bonus to all vision-based perception maneuvers as a result. They have tetrachromatic vision, which encompasses normal color vision as well as sensitivity to ultraviolet light, what first edition AD&D called ultravision. Their sense of colors differs from other races, and they're more sensitive to cues others cannot see. They have, so they don't get a bonus; they get reduced penalties for spotting invisible creatures. The penalty for spotting something invisible is reduced by 30 for a Solar Gear because of their tetrachromatic vision. And they have a third eyelid, a transparent additional eyelid or nictating membrane, which protects them while permitting sight, unaffected by dust, sand, or water, which otherwise might limit the use of their eyes. This is a feature of them being amphibious. Now, they also, obviously, these creatures all have stat bonuses that I haven't gone through here, but we haven't talked about stats, so maybe we'll look into them as we need to. At the moment, I'm really going through the non-player character races. These are PC races in Rolemaster, but in this setting, these are what the rest of the world, these are the dangers in the rest of the world. That are races, not monsters.
I was getting quite attached to the Solar Gear. Okay, fine, I'll think of someone else.
Okay, well, having said that, there's no reason you can't create a Solar Gear. But for basically for the game setup I have in mind, they would be essentially an outcast, possibly something like maybe an orphan who then grew up among humans or something like that. Or as I say, someone who was either an outcast or just suffered from wanderlust and left the Solar Gear lands.
Fair enough.
So that's not to say that you can't create a Solar Gear. It's just these are what I first did is I first said, okay, so what makes this world a challenge? And we've got the Solar Gear on coastal lands, partly because of their amphibious nature. Often you find them in swamps, as per the Argonians, but of course their amphibious nature means they can also swim in the sea. And they're also, they're pretty tough, they're naturally armored, they're good fighters. So where the Sea Crowd try and raid Solar Gear lands, it doesn't go so well. So as a result, other races have moved away from the coasts to avoid the Sea Crowd, and the Solar Gear have just taken their spaces and expanded out from their swamps. Let's talk a little bit about elves, shall we? Because
by the way,
elves are one of the biggies.
By the way, Fish, what I'm doing is I've got the step 2 choose race option up on my stream from the character creation, which gives me access to the images of different races, and they're right up.
That's a neat idea. Yeah, I'm showing the actual core rulebook.
Yeah, I figured that's what you were doing, so I thought this would be slightly easier for me.
So how I'm doing elves in here is, again, heavily inspired by Tolkien. Like a lot of serious Tolkien fans, and by serious Tolkien fans, I don't mean, hardcore obsessive fanatics who've learned to speak Elvish. I can't do that. I mean, just fans of a more serious turn of mind thinking about Tolkien. I dislike player character elves. In Lord of the Rings, the elves were never intended to be a part of the other races. If you look at Middle Earth, they are aloof. They are so different from everyone else, including their virtual immortality. The fact that Legolas is effectively a child, and he's also hundreds of years old. He is by far the oldest, not counting Gandalf, the oldest member of the company of the Fellowship of the Ring. But he's temperament-wise, he's on a par with Merry and Pippin. So I'm sort of leaning into that. And the elves in this world, all types of elves, are isolationist xenophobes with a superiority complex.
Mm-hmm.
Which, if you read around Lord of the Rings, we see Legolas in Lord of the Rings, who is not Legolas. Is very much, he's interested in what the other races are doing, and he sort of goes along with it all, and he's quite cool. But if you read stuff around Lord of the Rings, other Middle Earth stuff, you find that a lot of the elves have a real superiority complex and look down on everyone else. Hence the issues that you get with people like Elrond. Now, Elrond is, of course, a half-elf. But even Elrond, the half-elf, has a real problem with his daughter marrying a human and insists that she will marry no one less than the king of both Arnor and Gondor.
Now, whether it's a dislike of humans or whether it's a real motivational tool for him to pull his finger out, that is a character
I
question.
think it's both.
Mm.
I think it is both. But where the motivational tool thing seems very obvious in the movies, you have to bear in mind that the book version of Aragorn doesn't need motivating. He has
Oh, actually,
already
I find it the other
spent
way round. I honestly find it the other way round.
decades.
Um, because
But in the
in the
movies, he spends
movies
all of
it's
his
more.
time saying he doesn't want to be king, whereas in the book, he is absolutely dedicated to his role as king.
Yeah, but Elrond in the book, in the movies, apparently hates Aragorn and
Yeah,
completely
yeah, but I'm talking
dismisses
about
him.
Aragorn rather than Elrond here.
Mm,
But yeah, Elrond is um, he's very snotty in the movies compared to the book. The book's far less so.
everything.
He's almost a foster father to Aragorn in the books.
Mm.
But anyway, yeah, we've got these isolationist, xenophobe, superiority complex elves. With a lamentably low birth rate, they are very protective of their children. This results in the wider world only ever seeing older, powerful elves, who are often so much older than the other peoples of the world that this sense of superiority can seem justified. Elven royalty are inevitably fair elves, except for a single pure wood elf nation, because I like Galadriel and co. Galadriel, of course, is not actually a wood elf, but her
Mm.
nation seems like it's a wood elf nation till you look at the royal family. So
I
I
have
just thought, yeah, we'll go the whole
questions.
hog and have a wood elf royal family.
I have questions about the noisy
Mm-hmm.
elves because that's a
Ask away.
bizarre title. Noisy elves. What?
Okay, so what are we looking at for noisy elves?
I don't know. It's elf noisy. Elf fair, elf grey, elf high, elf wood, elf noisy. What? They're the ones that sit outside with their
Uh,
stereos going?
okay, yeah, that's not here. I've got fair, high, grey, and wood in
Yeah.
the core book here. Elf noisy is presumably an optional rule that I will need to look into.
This is an
I have a
example of a
feeling I know where
varying
this is.
voice.
Yeah, I have a feeling I know where that's coming from. There's always been an issue with elves in Rolemaster that some of their abilities don't really work mechanically.
Okay.
For example, elves are represented as having low self discipline because of
Right.
their nature in Tolkien, that they are a bit flighty and easily distracted
Yeah.
and um, and a bit distanced from the world because of their immortality. And this is represented by a low self discipline. But self discipline contributes towards stealth skills.
Ah.
So so as a result, you have this issue where they have to be mechanically compensated for to get the elven stealth that we all expect, the elven grace
Mm-hmm.
and silence.
That makes sense.
So in this world, anyway, we've got one wood elf nation. In all the other nations, the types mix freely, with high elves forming nobility, grey elves the general populace and army, and wood elves tending the forests and acting as scouts and gamekeepers. So that's how elves fit into this world. In a low-level game, it would be unlikely for an elf player character. because they would be too young to have been allowed really to leave the Elven lands. There'd have to be some pretty solid explanation for why this elf has left Elven lands. Dwarves, again, dwarves are rare and they dwell in small, isolated communities. Should really bring the dwarves up on screen, shouldn't I? If we're talking about dwarves. Do I really need to talk about the elf racial traits, by the way? They're the ones we expect them to be. Efficient sleepers, they meditate instead of sleeping. They're immune to disease. They have night vision. And then the different types of elves have other things like hearing bonuses or golden throat. Fair elves have beautiful voices which soothe and calm. Which is another place where you start getting into, hang on, is Lothlorien really a wood elf nation?
Moving on to dwarves,
what
however.
you've got... yeah, moving on to dwarves.
Moving on to dwarves, however, I noticed that once again we're going with the guarded jealously, women being guarded jealously and not let out of the halls. I see.
Are we going with that?
That's what the bottom of the write-up says. Not as fertile as humans, they have few children, and less than a third of their people are women, who are guarded jealously within their cavernous halls.
That's interesting, because that's not in the write-up on dwarves, the page on dwarves given in the races in the core lore. No mention of that at all. So intriguing
Hi,
as
Leah.
to where that's
You are very
actually
welcome to
come
lurk. I hope you find the stream interesting.
So dwarf, that's not really going to be a thing in my game, because I see no reason why it needs to be.
Merely pulling that out because that's literally just in the character creation write-up.
Yeah. I'm intrigued as to where that came from. I will have to look into where that came
that
from.
Phrasing
because, as I say, it's not in the
bell.
one page. Yeah.
Fish.
It may come from an earlier edition and
that's
have been somehow and have been patched into the software in this edition.
Yeah.
So what I've got them as isolationists, they're a bit like Witcher dwarves. They're isolationist communities who don't allow non-dwarves to enter, apart from the occasional trusted gnome. They will trade with their neighbors, but otherwise have no dealings with the outside world. So again, a dwarf player character would be very much an exception. You can have one, but they would be, and the rest of the world would be, bloody hell, where's he come from?
Yeah.
As a dwarf, what's he doing here? And they would possibly even be viewed rather askance by their own people, who would want to know why they were there. So that's the available as player characters, but non-standard player character races that are surrounding where we want our game to actually be. We want our game to be in what we are calling the Inner Republic, a cosmopolitan region of common humans, halflings, and gnomes, in which each settlement is governed by Athenian democracy, then sends a representative to the Senate in Grey Hall, where broader policy decisions are made. Their borders are threatened by nomadic Vulfan, a neighbouring Orc dominion, and while the coastal Solagir prevent expansion in the remaining direction. We haven't talked about Vulfan yet. I didn't list them among the races because I wasn't really doing anything special with them, but I did decide that having nomadic Vulfan threatening the edges of the Inner Republic would be nice. So we'll take a quick look at Vulfan. Vulfan are, think werewolves, but they don't turn into wolves or men. They're just the hybrid form. They are furred men with wolfish heads and tails, often confused with werewolves. Such is the fear and loathing with which Vulfan are generally regarded that this usually winds up being worse for the werewolves. Vulfan are extremely violent, predatory people. They run in packs, killing and devouring all in their path until exhaustion and sated hunger compel them to rest for a few days. They're nocturnal. Their lives are brutal, but usually short, rarely beyond 40 years. Their own armament of fangs and claws is often supplemented by weapons garnered from fallen foes. So we've got these guys bordering the Inner Republic, and occasionally a Vulfan pack will actually just stray in the wrong direction and start attacking places. So good foes for adventurers going out to deal with a rampaging Vulfan pack. Potentially, you could have a Vulfan ejected from their pack, usually for a failed challenge against their betters, who occasionally find a home in mercenary units where being intimidating can be a benefit. Even there, a reputation for excessive brutality and an inability to stop or even distinguish allies can result in the unit being considered reckless and unreliable. So potentially could be interesting, but it would be a real role-playing challenge keeping a Volfan going in a player character group, not just for the player playing the Volfan, but also for the players around them, who have to keep that character under control and also keep the rest of the world from lynching them.
It's a neat way of doing a berserk without going for the standard bear people.
It is, yes. So that's what we're going with for our world, our initial campaign setting is this
Welcome, Chrono.
republic, this democratic cosmopolitan republic, evening Chrono, consisting primarily of common humans, halflings, and gnomes. Though obviously there's always the possibility for exceptional members of other races, and there are 23 races in the game, so there's a lot to choose from in that respect. Let's move on to the idea of creating a character then, shall we? So for this, we are going to be using a piece of software called ERA, the Electronic Rolemaster Assistant. ERA is effectively it's a web server that you run on your machine. Your fellow adventurers connect to it. It's not quite a VTT, but it's gradually moving in that direction. It's gradually gaining more and more VTT functions. And if when I want to run Rolemaster, it's a really cool game. When I run Rolemaster, I will be running it using ERA. I may or may not have to also use Fantasy Grounds for things like maps and so forth. At the moment, that's not something that ERA really does. But it's great for character creation and yeah, which is still in beta. It's great for character creation and advancement, and also for character management. So it will let you do things like make the rolls. You can roll the dice, you can cast the spells, you can do combat results, things like that in ERA. But it's not a full VTT as yet. So if we go through character creation, we'll both go through character creation at the same time. That way we can sort of talk each other through it. And obviously I will be using the book to understand what the software is telling us. Because while it's not badly written software at all, I have gone through trying to create a character without reference to the book, and it left me completely baffled. So we'll be using the book as we go along, and we will follow the steps in the book with the software helping us to do it.
Okay.
So character creation starts. We have a character generation checklist on page 17 of the core rulebook. And first thing it tells us is we need a character concept. So a good concept should include race, culture, profession. Yeah, we're getting there. We're discussing this now.
God.
Good character concept should include race, culture, and profession. So did you want to go with a renegade solar gear and be an unusual member of society?
I kind of do, but I don't know how much of that is down to the fact that I've just figured out who I was building this morning in the character artist.
Well, that wasn't a solar gear because no, you were. That's the second one you were doing. You mean who was
the second one? I was
could well
doing
have been a solar gear. Yeah,
yeah, the Snake Man.
Yeah. So yeah, if you want to do solar gear, I'm cool with that. You obviously will have to accept the fact that your character will be very unusual, and even more so than in the modern day in fantasy medieval times. That which is different is often looked very poorly on. So there will be role-playing challenges involved in playing solar gear in the Inner Republic. But I know you're an experienced gamer. You're up to it.
Yep. So. It's not as bad as the Vran in Witcher. Let's face it. At least probably most people are not going to be trying to turn him into
no, this is true.
Shoes.
Not as bad as the Vran. No. So then part B of our concept is culture. Now, Rolemaster, a very long time ago, separated species and upbringing, essentially, in the game. It did this during the 90s, several years before, many years before it was introduced to Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition as a grand new thing no one had ever done before. And that is carried on in Rolemaster Unified. So you don't have an elven culture. Instead, you have an elven race or species, depending on how you wish to phrase it, who will then be one of a number of cultures. They could be cosmopolitan, Highlander, nomads, and the two are totally separate. So you get your physical attributes from being solar gear, and then your culture is based on where you grew up, and is your learned behavior essentially comes from that. So the obvious first question on this character is your character going to be someone who grew up among the solar gear and then decided they wanted to see the world? Or have they for some reason been raised maybe in the Inner Republic, away from their own people, and have the worst of both worlds in most respects, in that they don't fit in with the solar gear if they go back to there because they've been raised as if they were human, but they don't fit in among humans because they look like a solar gear?
I was considering someone who basically was spirited away by a parent as a kid from the solar gear for reasons to be established. And
the half and half between the two, then, where you've got someone raised by a single solar gear parent, has a bit Worf in some respects. Now, he was raised by humans, but he knew a lot about Klingon society, but he was still viewed as a bit of an outcast by the Klingon. So here we'd have someone who knows enough to be able to fit in with Inner Republic society, but also knows enough to be able to fit in with Solar Gear society, but doesn't really belong in either.
Yeah. Culture's not on the character.
Is that what we're going
generator.
for? Your sounded very...
no, I was agreeing. I was just noting down that culture is not on the character generator, so...
it is, we just haven't got there yet.
No, because it comes to profession next.
Yeah, it kind of goes slightly backwards in that respect.
And then wanders off into weapon costs. So first, oh, there we have culture. Okay, there we go.
Yeah, it is there.
It's okay. Okay, so cosmopolitan, harsh.
So again, let's actually go to a slightly smaller version of me, so you can almost see, just with his head missing, the solar gear on the.
I opted not for the camera today.
Yeah. So what we're seeing here is we get the description, much of the description from the book. We can see that. We can see that it comes from RMU core lore, which is nice. If, for example, I'm trying to think of something that isn't in core lore. I think all of these are from core lore.
Noisy elf.
Yeah, I don't think we have any new races from, with the exception, yes, I suppose, of noisy elf.
They are the only thing under special.
Yeah, not sure quite what. It might be that maybe it's an example of how you can customize things. I'm not sure.
It could be.
But mostly, these are all from core lore. So I don't remember off the top of my head whether there are any new races in creature lore, but I do have the creature lore module for this. So if there were, they should be in here. There might be new races in creature lore too when that comes out. So we can see, looking at our solar gear, we can now look at things like stat bonuses. We can see they have a bonus to constitution and a bonus to strength, but penalties to memory, presence, and self-discipline. Rolemaster has quite a lot of stats. It has agility, what you expect it to be. Constitution, again, what you expect it to be. Empathy really is, I suppose, what you expect it to be, but it's got a little bit of intuition in there as well, in that empathy, for example, is used for, if I remember rightly, for essence magic, and that whole getting the feel of the magical weaves, which I would have thought maybe intuition would be more appropriate. Then we do have an intuition stat. Memory, presence is charisma. Quickness, as distinct from agility, is Quickness is used for things like your initiative, obviously, but also for things like your defensive bonus. Dodging out of the way of things is done on quickness, whereas agility is more things like shooting with a bow. Reasoning is reasoning. Self-discipline is sort of willpower and determination and self-control. And then strength, obviously, is strength. We also then have a modifier in the resistances. There are 4 possible resistance modifiers in the game. We have a channeling, essence, mentalism, and physical. Channeling, essence, and mentalism are the 3 types of magic in the game. Not just 2 in this game, but 3. We have essentially magical psionics. It's not actually psionics, it is magic, but is magic manipulated by the power of the mind rather than casting more sort of traditional formal arcane spells or channeling the power of the gods. And then physical is physical resistances. Now, in the old days, that was broken down. In the previous editions, that was broken down a lot more. We might have resistances to poisons, for example, or to diseases separately. Now we seem to just have a physical resistance, which makes you generally tougher against physical stuff. And we also have bonus development points. Solar Gear gets sod all bonus development points. They get 2. This is because they get so many cool things like natural armor and so forth.
Oh, I take it back.
Humans get a bunch of bonus DPs. Oh, do they?
Yeah. The digits are okay. Solar Gear scales have been used to make very fine armour. Of course, no wise armourer would admit he works such feats, lest news reach these violent folk. And you end up as a rug.
Not to mention, so it does, yeah.
It just being fundamentally wrong.
Yeah. The bonus DPs, they've done them interestingly in this edition. You can use them to buy talents, basically, sort of special advantages and disadvantages are available. And you can use your bonus development points for those. You can also use them for skills. But you don't have to spend them straight away. They have to be spent within, I think it's the first 3 levels. Okay. With a maximum of how many can be spent per level. Now, with a Solar Gear, you've only got 2. That's not going to be a real issue. They're going to get spent during character creation. But with something like a common human who have a lot of bonus development points, it lets you effectively progress quicker during your first couple of levels because you've got extra points to spend on each of those levels. Then you settle down to the normal advancement rate from then on. And that kind of balances out the fact that they don't have the inherent advantages that some of the other races would have. So it's an interesting way of doing things. I've not seen it done quite that way in other games, so I rather like that as an idea. So that is our race. We're choosing that, and then we are going on to profession next. So we'll skip over culture for a moment, even though these are done the other way around in the book. So profession. There's a lot of professions as well, including some variants in here. So, angry fighter, for example, is not a core profession. That's special again. But the professions in Rolemaster are divided into a number of categories, and we can filter by these categories.
Oh, I love the yellow from Mage.
Can. The filter on the categories is in fact but a book filter, so we can't filter for what I was thinking to filter for. So we'll do that manually. How it is filtered, how they're categorized is essentially in terms of how do they interact with magic. So what you have got, first off, you've got the Realm of Arms, which is the non-magic. Anybody can learn magic in Rolemaster. So it's not that they can't have magic at all, but it's their focus is not on magic. It's on the Realm of Arms. Doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to spend a lot of time punching things or hitting things. Laborer, for example, is part of the Realm of Arms, but that's because they're not magically trained rather than because they are combat trained.
There's an endearing orc gardener used as that. To illustrate that.
Yeah.
He's quite sweet.
That is indeed. Let me pop that one up on screen.
Yep.
So the Realm of Arms is the guys who focus on learning, physical, real world skills, so to speak, rather than learning any magic.
Mm-hmm.
Then we have what are deemed the semi spellcasters. So these are a hybrid between the realm of arms and one other realm, and this includes things like rangers and paladins, whose skills obviously involve ranging and hitting things for God,
And paladining,
but who have magical ability as part of that. Paladining, yes. So on our non-spellcasters, our realm of arms, we've got fighter, warrior, monk, thief, rogue, labourer, and scholar. And there is a no profession, which is kind of a fallback if you want to be completely custom. That they're not anything really. They don't get any skills that they are particularly good at cost wise, but at the same time they have a totally free hand in deciding what their bonuses are going to go into. Then the semi-spell users, we've got Ranger, Paladin, Monk, Magent, Bard, and Dabbler. Now, the ones of those that require some attention...
Yeah,
yep,
sorry.
ask
I
away.
have a question about the illustration for the Ranger, which implies a higher level of magic than I would have thought for a semi-spell user.
I think perhaps you are seeing more than you should be seeing in those terms.
He appears to be trying to set fire to a rabbit in his left hand, or throttling an elemental. It's hard to tell because I don't know if yours are in colour, but mine's black and white.
That may, yeah, we must be looking at the same picture there, but
go with a big beard, hood, big fire.
Yeah, sitting in front of a
it's a wood fire. Ah, so it looked more like a forge furnace initially, until I realised he was actually in the woods.
It's a campfire. He is sitting at a campfire. It's clearer in the colour version in the rule book. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, thank God for that. It's just quite nice, not just me.
And he's holding whatever it is that he's holding. Yeah, he is whatever it is that he is holding. It appears to be trying to cook it in the most inept way possible by dangling it over a fire with his hand. Strikes me as a bad way. This is someone who failed his ranger training, I feel.
Yeah. This is not the Raymers of the of Rolemaster.
No, this is not Raymers the Ranger.
No. That's a really huge high fire. Sorry, that threw me.
Well, he's a ranger, you see. He can make much bigger fires than normal people can.
Yeah.
So I was going to say that the semi-spell user classes that need an additional look, because people aren't going to be familiar with them.
Okay.
Are Magent and Dabbler, and to a lesser extent Monk. So let's start with Magent, which I've heard different pronunciations for. That's not how they pronounce it on the New Zealand actual play that I listen to. But I pronounce it Magent because that to me it makes sense. Because what this character is effectively, this is a magically powered spy.
Yeah.
So agent and mage, portmanteau word, Magent, I'm assuming therefore that's how it should be pronounced. Only you can start forest fires.
Yes.
So yeah, the Magent's magic is based at subterfuge and investigation. So they are spies, investigators. If you wanted a PI in a game like Rolemaster, for example, you'd probably go with a Magent, and that would give you some quite cool abilities accordingly. The Dabbler.
Very good at bingo. Oh
quite
my
like
God.
that artwork, I must admit, for the Dabbler. That is.
I think I've got a mini for him actually from those
kind of cool.
Dabblers
are semi-spellcasters. Yeah. They augment. Now, at first reading, this sounds a bit like the Magent, actually. They augment their subterfuge capabilities using essence. A Dabbler's base spells tend to enhance natural abilities in many areas, with the most distinctive lists giving the Dabbler an edge in commerce and with machinery. In more advanced setting, the Dabbler's most natural role might be as a mechanic or engineer. It gets less Magent as you go on. The idea of mechanic and subterfuge don't really go together in my mind, but that's kind of how they have described this.
If Robinson's
Part of the
creating a character,
difference
he'd go with a dabbler.
between a dabbler would be a good Robinson character, yeah. Part of the distinction between a magent and a dabbler is that magents are mentalism casters and dabblers are essence casters. But also, the magents are more geared towards being sneaky and investigation, whereas the dabbler does veer into things like trade and so forth. We can see the base spell lists at the bottom of the page. So concealment mastery is obviously subterfuge. Influences is interacting with people. Movement mastery is movement mastery. Senses, smoke and mirrors, and trade mastery for a dabbler, whereas a magent gives us assassination mastery, disguise mastery, escapes, gathering secrets, misdirections, and poison mastery. So there is a definite lean towards bumping people off in that, more so than my description of magent implied. But yeah,
the schools of magic, Fish.
Yes.
Can you remind me what the difference is between mentalism and essence?
Essence is using arcane knowledge to manipulate the flows of magic in the world.
Yeah.
The essence is what they call sort of mana and flows of magic, and essence wielders manipulate that.
Right.
Magents are manipulating magic essentially through the power of their mind. A lot of their magic is psionics, but it's psionics justified as being magic rather than being simple mental power. It is definitely a form of magic. In a lot of settings, psionics is considered separate from magic. It is one of the three types of magic in this, but it is essentially psionics.
Okay.
So they tend to be a lot of mind magics, but also manipulation of the world around you through things like telekinesis type stuff.
And then channeling. Yeah, okay.
And channeling is the powers of the gods.
Right.
Or of whatever you're channeling. It doesn't have to be a god. Just channeling power from some external source.
Channeling power from something which can turn you into a greasy smear, if it ever actually notices.
Yeah.
Right.
So the reason I said that to a lesser extent monk needs explaining in this edition is we've got two monk classes. We've got a semi-spell user monk and a non-spell user monk. So the D&D monk is probably more the monk in Rolemaster, because these are people who they do get the unarmed combat training, that they're very much an Eastern monk, not a Western monk.
Mm-hmm.
But they also have some spells. Their spells tend to be to do with control of their own body and enhancing their own physical capabilities. So body reins, combat mastery, evasions, mind over matter, monk's bridge, and monk's sense. And by the way, these are clickable, so we can look at the list here and see what the spells on that list, these lists are. Body reins level 1 starts with balance, which is a bonus to balance maneuvers. And then we go on through things like concentration, unpain, pace shifting, water lungs. It's control of your own body. Combat mastery, on the other hand, is giving you study opponent, counter strike, unbalancing strike, and general bonuses to thwacking people.
Ah, there's the monk. For some reason, the graphics got messed up and it decided to give me a spell chucker, a clear spell chucker, rather than the woman who is balancing on one foot.
That's odd. Yeah. Now, the warrior monk, on the other hand, is the non-spell user version. They don't get the spell lists. So they can learn magic. Everyone in Rolemaster can learn magic, but it's very difficult for them to learn magic because they're a non-spell user class. But they get even more bonuses and development point cost reductions for learning the combat. So they are better at learning unarmed combat and beating the bejesus out of people with their fists and feet or weapons than a normal monk, at the expense of losing the monk's combat. The monk's spellcasting.
Let's have a look and see what they've put up for the warrior.
So,
okay. Right. I want words
Yeah,
with
the
the
warrior
left
monk is
side
taken
of these
straight from
windows.
Legend of Five Rings.
Yes.
Um,
Yep. The warrior monk looks
yeah,
like
it's
he's
definitely a
going into
dragon.
the whole meditation thing, whereas the monk doesn't look like she's meditating so much as getting ready to kick ass on the other 27
Yeah,
chambers of Shaolin.
honestly, yeah, honestly, these two illustrations could work either way around for
Yeah.
either class, either profession.
Yeah.
Because neither of them really demonstrates magic. I suppose you could argue that the background effects on the monk image might indicate some mystical
Yeah.
ability, whereas the warrior monk doesn't. But you could also argue that the warrior monk is there using meditation to prepare his mystical powers. So
Yeah.
either one would probably work for
Yes.
either profession.
And he appears to be glowing.
Um, doesn't really look like he's glowing to me, but
It's the
that may
sparkles.
just be.
I don't know if you've got my stream
Oh
visible.
yeah, I see your point. I think the sparkles. I don't think are supposed to be sparkles.
Ah, okay. Just the
I
way they're
think that's
conversion.
just the way the image conversion has gone.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's not sparkly in the color version in the rule book.
Okay. I'm not when I'm raising this kind of thing, by the way, I'm not griping. If you're going to use era, it is worth
Mm,
knowing what you're looking at. And
absolutely, I would say it's era. This is my first time properly trying to use era.
yeah.
I've poked at it to get a handle on roughly how it works. I would certainly say that I would feel uncomfortable trying to talk somebody through era without them through character creation, etc., on era without them having access to a copy of the rulebook.
Mm, understandable.
With something like, say, D&D or Pathfinder on fantasy grounds, I mean, for starters, the whole rulebook is in there if you spend the money on it. But
True.
also the way it's put together, I think, is much clearer if you don't have the rulebook in front of you. This is not. I mean, this is the work of one guy essentially. It's published through Iron Crown Enterprises, but it is essentially a piece of fan work that Iron Crown picked up and said, "Yeah, okay, let's make this official and go with it."
Yeah.
And he's been improving it and working on it and adding things to it. And bear in mind that he has also been doing 3 different editions of Rolemaster and also Space Master for it. So there's a lot for one guy to be doing.
Okay.
So past the semi-spell users, we get into pure spellcasters. And there are 2 types of pure spellcasters. There's the pure spellcasters, bit obvious,
Okay.
and there are hybrid spellcasters. We'll deal with the hybrid spellcasters first, just so I can explain what they are. Hybrid
Okay.
spellcasters are pure spellcasters who merge 2 forms of magic.
Right.
So, for example, we've got the pure spellcaster, mentalism pure spellcaster called a lay healer. And lay healers are concentrated on spells that heal people and animals. But we also have the healer, which is a hybrid spellcaster, which combine channelism? What's channelism? Channeling and mentalism. So yeah, channelism.
Yeah. Okay.
Sorry about that. And they have the healer in Rolemaster is a really, really interesting profession because they have magic which transfers wounds from other people to themselves. So they heal you by
Again.
literally taking your wound. And then they have self-healing spells that will function. They will autocast essentially, even if you're unconscious.
Mm.
So that they're kind of Wolverine. They will heal from almost anything, provided they've got enough magic points left to do it. But they heal you by taking your wounds onto themselves rather than just going, now you're better.
Mm.
So they're a very interesting class, and they are, as I say, they are a hybrid class that combines channeling and mentalism. The sorcerer, meanwhile, combines essence and channeling, and their base spells deal with the destruction of living beings and inanimate material. They're very destructive. And then the mystic combines essence and mentalism for subtle spells of misdirection and modification. Base
So
spells dealing
mystic.
with
Sorry.
personal illusions and the modification of matter. That's mystic, yeah. So those 3 classes combine two forms of magic to get their own unique abilities. Now, in
cool.
addition to having their own base spell lists, all of the semi and pure spellcaster classes have base spell lists of their own that are the ones that are associated with that profession, and they're very expensive for anyone else to learn those spells. There are also two other types of spell lists in the game, which are open spell lists, which are available to anyone, and closed spell lists, which are available to semi and pure spell users of the correct type of magic. And again, there are rules for learning cross types, so you can learn mentalism spells as an essence caster, as essence versions of them, but those are very expensive. and it gets base spells are the cheapest to learn. Closed spells are more expensive. Open spells aren't really that much more expensive, but are very weak, and that's what's easiest to learn for non-spell users.
Okay.
Yeah, so looking at the Warrior Monk, for example, it's got a cost for base spellcasting, but it has no base lists. Then it's 15 development points to learn a closed list, 7 to learn an open list. But the open list is going to be the weakest form of magic. A lot of the spells on open lists appear at a higher level than an identical spell on a closed or base list. So, for example, if I just go to Magician for a moment and look at Light Law, the second level spell on that list is Shock Bolt 1. Shock Bolt 1 appears in some of the closed lists as well, but at a higher level. So you've got to get to a higher level and spend more magic points to cast it, because the way it works in Rolemaster is you spend a number of power points equal to the level of the spell. So if you can cast Shock Bolt at level 2, that's 2 power points. If Shock Bolt is level 5 on the spell list you've learned, then it's going to cost you 5 power points to cast
that makes a difference.
for what is otherwise exactly the same spell. So base spell lists are more powerful than closed spell lists, and closed spell lists are more powerful than open spell lists. But outside of your own class, it goes closed are the most expensive, then between base and open are less expensive. But the base are way more powerful.
On a decent example of this, Gavin, looking at Bloodways under the healer, their first level spell is Clotting 2. I'm assuming that lay healer or something will get access to the open.
That's actually going to be well. I mean, everybody gets access to open lists, and anyone who is at least a semi-spell user gets access to closed lists.
Yeah.
I've actually got Spell Law open, so if I just swap to Spell Law, and we probably have a spell index at the back. So going to C and finding Clotting.
Yep.
Right, so Clotting is on pages 94, 104, 179, 192, and 224. That's how many versions of Clotting there are.
Oh, good Lord.
On different pages. Yeah. Paladins, for example. I can't see Clotting on the Paladin spell list. Oh, there we go. We've got, Paladins don't get it until level 19.
Wow.
But they jump straight to the true version. The true version of a spell is pretty much the ultimate version of that spell.
Yeah.
So Clotting True at level 19 stops bleeding on any wound at any rate.
By comparison,
so no matter how badly damaged you are, no matter how ripped up you are, you just go, I'm no longer bleeding.
Yeah. By comparison, the healer gets that at level 8.
Yeah, as opposed to 19 for a paladin. As I say, base lists. Well, I mean, that paladin one is a base list, but it's a semi-spell user base list that is not a healer specialist.
Medium flesh healing.
Let's go for another example on Clotting. Let's pick 179. That's open mentalism. So the version any mentalism user can learn, and if you're a non-spell user profession, you pick one realm that you can then learn magic expensively, but you can learn it in.
Yeah.
Level 2 self-healing gives you Clotting 1. So the way this works, where you've got a number on a spell like that, it will deal with that many points generally. Worth checking the rules when using it just in case, but generally the way it will work is clotting 1 will heal 1 hit point per round of bleeding. Clotting 2 will heal 2 hit points per round of bleeding. So at the same level that the lay healer got clotting 2, an open mentalism list gets clotting 1. So the lay healer one is doubly efficient for the same power points.
Yeah.
Bleeding is a big deal in this game, by the way, because Rolemaster combat is all about criticals. And criticals aren't just additional hit point damage in Rolemaster, they deliver specific effects. And this includes bleeding, penalties, and outright death. So a lot of wounds, particularly slashing wounds or piercing wounds, will deliver a bleed that needs to be medically treated, or you're losing X number of hit points per round while you're still bleeding. So this is where spells like clotting come in.
Yeah.
Also worth noting the clotting one there, AoE caster. So it lets you clot. The open thing lets you prevent your own bleeding. It doesn't do anything for anyone else.
As opposed to caster, was it caster self us?
As a yeah, okay. So that is again caster. I think I will have to check for this edition, but I think what that means,
would that
I
be
would guess
taking the
that the US is the I think that's the unconscious.
Oh,
I think that's referring to the unconscious ability to cast a spell unconsciously.
Okay.
So that spell will cast itself if you pass out.
Oh, okay.
And prevent your bleeding.
Yeah.
I think that's what that means. You is... Oh, no, hang on. That's the spell type. So you would be a utility spell.
Oh.
As distinct from a combat spell. So that's area of effect, range, and type.
Right, gotcha.
And indeed duration, if applicable.
Okay.
This is a great system to play a healer in. You can have a lot of fun with them. It's a great system to play almost anything in, to be honest. This is love this game system. It disappoints me that I've never really got much chance to properly play it.
Oh, really?
So looking at cut repair, for example, so that is clotting, the duration has just got a dash. Cut repair, however, gives us all of them properly. So we have area of effect caster, duration permanent,
permanent,
range self, and type utility spell.
Gotcha.
So yeah, cut repair, that repairs your cut, and it's just that's it. It's healed. It's gone. Most healing spells have a duration, with the exception possibly of things like clotting, which have a special duration, because it's kind of permanent, but you usually have a restriction in activity for an hour or so while it fully clots, and can reopen if you start having another fight, for example, in the middle of that hour.
Right. Good Lord. I've just looked at the level 40 caster base spell. Holy hellfire. Caster physically becomes 10 years younger.
Yeah,
to a minimum of 1/3 of their age. I know.
So we haven't covered the pure spellcasters yet. So the pure spellcasters in this game are, and most of these are fairly obvious, Druid, Cleric, Magician, Illusionist, Mentalist, and Lay Healer. Lay Healer, as we've already mentioned, is the pure spellcaster healer type. Mentalist, Magician, and Cleric are basically your 3 core spellcaster types.
Okay.
Those are those are essentially the same profession for a different school of magic. Your Cleric is channeling divine magic or channeling magic. Your Magician is channeling essence magic. And your Mentalism is using the power of the mind. And those are the 3 core spellcasters that are dedicated to that school of magic, that type of magic.
I think I've got
Druids
a problem.
Druids are druids. They're animist clerics, essentially. And illusionists, obviously, are magicians who specialize in illusion. We don't have the specializations. So they are. Yeah, we don't have the school specializations that you have in D&D. Instead, you've got illusionist as a separate profession with its own base lists.
Okay.
There are illusion spells available in the closed lists, and I think even some
Um,
in the open lists
Cleric,
available
Wizard,
to
Scion
people.
equivalent. Yeah, basically. I know.
Cleric, Wizard, Scion, yeah,
Yep.
very much. Those three. Cleric, Mage, Mentalist would be Cleric, Wizard, Scion, yes. So that's basically, that is what our classes are. There's a lot of classes, and each of them is focused in a different direction. But the way Rolemaster works, it's a skill-based system. So there's nothing like base attack bonus or base saving throws or anything like that in Rolemaster. Everything is done on skills, and anyone can learn any skill, but it's how expensive it is to learn. And we can take a look at that. I'll leave us on Illusionist for the moment with our Freaky Haggart. And looking at this, we've got skill category costs in this column, sort of middle column here. So first thing, animal category skills have a cost of 4/6. So what that means is you can buy up to 2 skill ranks per level. The first rank will cost you 4 development points, and the second rank will cost you 6 development points. I believe in this edition they've standardized it to 50 points per level. It used to be calculated based on your attributes. So if you had good stats, you got more points to spend on skills. But I believe now they've standardized it to 50. So you could get your 2 ranks in an animal skill for 10 of your 50 points. Battle expertise, on the other hand, is 7 and 10. It cost you 7 points just to get 1 rank in that, because the illusionists aren't focused in that. Combat is grouped. We've got a number of different types of combat: combat expertise, combat training, melee, combat training range, combat training shield, and combat training unarmed. And these are listed as being the cheapest of them, melee weapons, 6/8. So that means your first rank in a combat skill is costing you 6 points. If you want a second rank in the same level, it will cost you another 8 points. Comparing that to a fighter, fighters are 1/2. So for 3 points, which is half what 1 rank costs an illusionist, you can get 2 ranks in a weapon, which means that fighters can also afford to learn lots of weapons, because they can say, I'm going to learn 3 different melee weapon skills, and that's still only going to cost me 9 points for 2 ranks in all 3 of these skills. So they're more versatile, but they don't necessarily have higher skills, because they can still only learn 2 ranks per level. So anybody can still be a decent combatant. It's just what else they can learn, how much they have to focus on what they're doing to get those skill ranks. And spells, well, an open list for a fighter will cost 7 points for the first rank, another 10 points for the second rank. Whereas for an illusionist, that open list will cost 1 and 2. It is the combat skills in reverse, essentially. Gotcha. Exactly the same costs almost in reverse. The base list for an illusionist is also 1 and 2. So base lists are the most powerful spell lists, and they're dirt cheap if you are a pure spell user. And you can also spend 2 and 4 for a closed list on top of that. We've got costs here for arcane and restricted. Those are special rules we will go into at a later date. Arcane magic. I don't know we've even actually released the arcane magic rules for this edition yet. But arcane magic in the previous editions was an ancient form of magic that combines all 3 of the realms of magic. Essentially, the principle is that in the beginning there was arcane magic, and then it was split into the 3 forms. And it is possible to learn arcane magic, which is just pure magic, and it's more powerful, more difficult to learn, more dangerous. And restricted is when you're getting into, if you're trying to learn somebody else's list, essentially. Again, the previous editions had more detailed rules on this, so you had a separate cost for another realm open, another realm closed, another realm base list, and indeed another base list from a different profession but the same realm as you, all had different costs. But that was in earlier editions. They've streamlined a lot in this one. So any thoughts as to what you might like your solar gear to be?
Yes, several. Part of the
Arcane
problem,
magic is Latin.
yes. What I am considering is initially I was thinking Magents, because I like Magents. They're interesting and they're fun.
Magents are a lot of fun, yeah.
Magents are a lot of fun. Then I discovered the healer existed. Again, not discovered, reminded myself. But unless you're playing in a party, they're less good for solo play, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to run Rolemaster for a group for a proper
Yeah,
party. I was looking at initially trying to bully you into some solo sessions that we could stream to try and attract people's attention to the game system because it's not well known.
yeah. I have no
It
problem
is
with
very much a
with that.
cult game.
Yeah, I have no problem with that fish. No, what I was wondering though was in order to survive said solo sessions, probably not a magent, probably not a healer. And then I realised that the thaumaturge is got in the back of my head, which would be channeling, I think.
Just out of interest, in terms of surviving, healers are really good at surviving
Oh yeah, they are. No, I mean,
because learn
it's
enough
also a bit
spells and you can
boring.
heal from almost anything. It's being able
Yeah,
to accomplish anything as well as
yeah.
surviving that
They
is where
yeah,
they fall down a little bit.
that's kind of the problem. I wasn't thinking in terms of surviving as in not dying. I was thinking in terms of surviving as in not you getting bored with me. Um, so
Ah. Oh no, you're going to slaughter everything no matter what you do because if you've got no skill
yeah,
and therefore you're taking, I think this edition still has the -25 for no ranks.
right.
So if you're taking -25 plus an attribute bonus and say you're rolling at -20 on your skill,
All
this
right.
game uses open-ended dice. If you roll 96 or above, you roll again and add it to the original roll.
Oh,
So you can have your die roll be 137 and then apply your -20 and say, well, I still hit you. And I know what your dice are like. We witnessed it yesterday in
yeah,
D&D,
right.
even when you were, not really there and I was rolling your dice for you.
Yeah,
Neve's rolls were better than anyone
I
else's.
know. So if hypothetically, and I'm not saying I will, I'm just thinking in terms of linking it to something that I've been doing on my stream recently, so people may have seen.
Yeah.
The looking at the thaumaturge as in the manipulator of spiritual entities. Would that be channeling or would that
That
be essence? Because I think it would be channeling.
let me double check, but my first instinct is to look at Druid for
Yeah.
that.
Okay.
But let me check. It depends how they've defined Druids, of course.
Hmm.
Um,
Apparently, they've defined them as Tom Bombadil,
oh,
high on
channeling
his own
Druid.
supply. Looking at that illustration.
Yeah, they have, rather, haven't they? Um, so let's swap the page to there. No, I was thinking that Druids might veer into the realm of spirit magic.
Hmm.
Um,
Animal, herb, nature, myths,
really,
protection.
yeah, but they have gone with the more traditional nature.
Yeah.
In Mithras or RuneQuest, for example, you'd definitely be talking spirit magic there.
Yeah.
I'm going to take a quick look at the Rolemaster spell lore again,
Okay.
at the spell index, and I'm going to buzz all the way down to S. Actually, no, I'm not, because it's not going to be S. Oh, yeah, no, summon. Summon's a good place to look for spirit magic, isn't it? S
Yeah.
for summon. So let's see what we can find in the way of summoning spells and get an idea,
Okay.
therefore.
Magicians are
Summon Lesser
elementalists.
Spirit.
Ah. Hello.
Okay, so that's Summon Lesser Spirit is not what you're looking for because that's an evil essence list.
Right. Okay.
One of
Is
the
that on the
ways that this
mystic?
game handles nastiness, handles bad guys, is that
Hmm.
there are evil versions of core spell lists that can replace some of your base spell lists if you're a pure spell user.
Yeah.
So, for example, your magician could take the necromancy mastery spell list in place of one of their normal base lists
Yeah.
and be an evil magician. And that's what Summon Lesser Spirit comes under.
They're good at
Uh,
crafting, by the way, Noel.
this is very
Labourers.
much summoning the undead rather than just
Yeah.
spirits.
Yeah, sorry, no, it's just a comment that labour is a funny profession.
Yeah, I haven't covered, by the way.
Mm.
Yeah, it is. It's I can give a good practical literary example of a labourer. That would be what Dernik in the Belgariad is. He is a blacksmith, and he would be created in Rolemaster as the labourer profession.
See also Sam Gamgee,
So
gardener to start
see
with.
also Sam Gamgee, yeah, gardener. Um, so it looks like the summoning stuff
Yeah.
is mainly for demons and undead. Um, in a previous edition, or animals in the case of druids. In
Mm-hmm.
a previous edition, I have no doubt I could find you something more spirit magic in amongst the various add-ons. I mean, there were like 8 Rolemaster companions, first and second edition. And there was also, for second edition, there was the absolutely beautiful elemental companion. There was an
Mm.
elemental companion for standard system stroke FRP, which was nowhere near as good. The second edition elemental companion was fantastic. It provided a whole grab bag of different elements and different ways of structuring your elemental structure. So you could have the simple earth, air, fire, water, or you could go all the way up to an elemental structure where you've got
Yeah.
24 elements and how they interact with one another, and decide that based on what game world you were creating to play in. And there was some really good stuff in that, including turning dragons into elemental creatures. So even if you kill the dragon, it can kill you right back because its blood is pure elemental material. So you kill an earth dragon and get its blood on you, and it could literally turn you to stone.
Yeah.
Fantastic book. But
Right.
mostly we would be talking. There is an entire summons list for
Clerics.
cleric. So starting with summons 1, caster can instantly summon a first level non-intelligent, i.e. possessing the animalistic or mindless floor, living creature, which appears somewhere within the spell's range. Caster can specify the general type of creature, but exactly what the creature is should be determined randomly. E.g., the caster could specify 4-legged hoofed, and could get a zebra, horse, camel, etc.
Mm-hmm.
If the creature can understand the caster's communication, the creature can be controlled by normal communication. Otherwise, control is maintained through concentration of the caster. Now, I like that description.
Mm.
So if you summon something that is capable of understanding what you say, you can just give it an instruction and get on with something else. If
Yeah.
not, you have to concentrate on what it's doing. I think that's a really nice way of handling it.
Yeah.
Because it makes sense. If the creature is ever put into a dangerous situation, the duration immediately drops to 1 round per level. Otherwise, its duration varies, which is 10 minutes per level, unless
Okay.
it's in a dangerous situation when it drops to 1 minute per level. So stress will cause it to disappear, essentially.
Fair enough.
And then we go through summons 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 are the same, except that you get multiple options to add to. So
Yeah.
once you get beyond 1, you get to change some options. You can change each option lets you increase the level of the summoned creature by 1, summon an additional first level creature, or double the duration. And so then you get a little bit of a mix and match as to exactly how you want to do it. So if you're using the 5th level summon 5, you could create a level 1 creature at 4 times the normal duration, 5 times the normal duration rather, or you could create normal duration for a 5th level creature, or any mix you want to do. You create 2 first level creatures at 4 times duration, whatever.
Mm.
Then we get into demonic gates.
Oh, okay.
At level 12, we have Summon Guard. Caster can summon, teleport to his location, a single and currently doing service to the summoner or the summoner's religious institution. Guard must also be within range of the spell when it's cast, or it will fail. Range is 500 feet. So yeah, 12th level clerics have a spell which will actually just let them say, "Yep, I want some of the holy guard. I want them here and I want them now." And I just disconnected apparently from Twitch according to OBS. So I hope that
Oh,
didn't glitch out for too long.
I'm still showing a shared chat.
Showing no drop. Yeah, I'm showing no dropped frames, but
Hmm.
it did disconnect and reconnect. So there's probably going to be a on my VOD. That's probably going to be a break there. So
Okay.
if you've just started watching this VOD, there's an earlier part. Go back and find it. And you get up to summoning entire armies and gating things in at higher levels. But the low level stuff, it's not still not spirits, but the low level
No.
stuff does have effectively summon monster for cleric.
Okay. I shall stop looking at level 14s then.
Yeah, it takes your. There are rules for overcasting, or there are in the earlier editions. I'm assuming there are in this edition as well, which let you try and cast spells of a higher level than you are, provided you have enough power points. But they are, it increases the risk of spell failure and bad things happening. Because on a spell failure, there's all kind of mishap tables, or there certainly were in earlier editions.
Yeah.
Just looking to see whether we have anything under calm or call rather than summon. We have call mount, but that
Okay.
seems to be about the only thing that is calling a thing.
I did just have to look up what Faithful Tongue was because that just slightly worried me.
Way hey.
Yeah, exactly. That's why it worried me. But it's actually caster can speak and understand the languages of any supernatural entities favourable to their religion with the same fluency as they have in their native language. That's
That's
kind
quite
of
neat.
cool.
So
Yeah,
there's
communal ways too.
quite a nice closed channeling list. Mounted ways.
Okay.
The first level creates a bond between you and your mount. And
Okay.
is permanent. It's just you cast it to create a bond between you and your mount. It's only possible to have one mount at a time. The target of this spell must be a typical mount of the caster's culture, usually a horse or camel. That does nothing else. It makes a bond.
Right.
That's it. That bond doesn't do anything.
Okay.
Then, however, the later spells rely on that bond. So level 2, call mount. Caster can telepathically summon their mount, which will come as quickly as
Ah.
possible. It's got a range of 100 feet per level.
Bosh.
Then at level 4, we get Augment Mount. The next maneuver by the mount receives a plus 20 bonus. At level 5, one spirit. Caster and mount make resistance rolls using the higher of their 2 levels and the higher of their resistance roll bonuses. So essentially, if you're riding something higher level than you benefit. If you're riding something lower level than you, it benefits. But you both get to use the better of the two things that are necessary
So
in
that
resistance
list is
rolls.
what you do if you want to
Resistance rolls
create
are
the
like
Anne
saving throws.
McCaffrey Dragon Riders.
Oh yeah, very much. Dragon would need to be a culturally appropriate mount for it to qualify on the first level spell. But yeah, if you've created a dragon rider or a wyvern rider or a griffin rider culture, then that spell would absolutely give you that as a closed channeling spell. So you could see fighters from that culture learning that spell and being channeling users. Or rangers would be better because they're already channeling users.
Yeah. Just looking now at other options. Mystic is interesting. Going to let me change the list, thank you. Create condensation.
Yeah, Mystic.
I get what it means in the
Mystical
gas
Change is an
alteration.
interesting one because it lets you duplicate people.
Yeah,
Lets you pretend to be someone.
Okay.
Which is it that you're querying on gas alteration?
It was just condensation level 1. I can see how it then adds on into air wall, thick fog. Your first ability is to condense moisture out of the air.
It's effectively create water.
Yeah.
But it requires that there be water in the air to create it rather than just popping it out of nowhere like D&D does.
Also, you could use that quite happily on, say, a mirror to stop somebody seeing you were coming up behind them, but it's just me.
Yeah, all kinds of interesting ways. One of the things about Rolemaster and Spell Law is that it doesn't go into a lot of detail on a lot of things like spell descriptions. a lot of it is left to the interpretation of the GM and the group. So it's good for people who don't necessarily want a hard and fast, this is how it is set of rules, but want something they can play with and adapt and agree with between their group.
Yeah.
So condensation, I'm looking at the one from Magician rather than Mystic, but it's the same spell. Condenses 1 cubic foot of water from the surrounding air. Condensation can be channeled into any suitable receptacle, including casters' cupped hands. That has a range of touch, a duration of permanent, because it just makes the water, and it is an elemental spell type E.
Okay.
So the whole mirror thing, the range of touch is going to be an issue for that. That's going to slow you down because you need to touch the mirror to do that.
Yeah.
But it is great for we need water. Let's create some water. As I mentioned in the discussion last night during the D&D session, actually the actual play that I've been listening to for Rolemaster, which is using Rolemaster Classic, which is essentially 2nd edition. They, when stuck in an environment with no access to water, were using an ice wall spell. They didn't have condensation, but they did have the ability to create ice walls. So one of them was summoning these ice walls, and they just spent a lot of time licking a big old wall of ice in order to rehydrate.
Okay. You see, I always go. Maybe I should not go sneaky. I'm also steering clear of the actual religious types. Having realised that in the last 2 games I've been playing, I've played 2 clerics. Well, no, cleric and paladin.
Yes. So your mystic space spells deal with personal illusions and the modification of matter. So things like mystical change, illusory looking like other people or just looking different to how you are. Confusing ways is illusion. Gas and liquid alteration and solid alteration are obviously altering matter. And one of the great things about mystics is they're a hybrid class, which means that you have access to the open and closed lists for both essence and mentalism when choosing your spells outside of your base classes. So you've got reasonable costing on a lot of possible spell lists.
Who is the hybrid or which incorporates channeling? Which ones are those? Because of course it doesn't tell me whether someone's hybrid or...
So both healer and sorcerer.
Okay, ignoring healer for now.
Yeah, healer is channeling and mentalism, and sorcerer is hybrid of channeling and essence, and they tend to be destructive magics.
Yeah.
So sorcerer lists flesh destruction, fluid destruction, gas destruction, mind destruction, solid destruction, and soul destruction. So
I
pick
love
one.
the first one.
Gas destruction, because we were just looking at gas.
Sorry, I'm looking at flesh destruction level 1. I apologise. The sheer pettiness of sprain limb being a wound that you can deliver.
Yeah.
It's wonderful.
Yeah. Bear in mind, of course, what that's essentially doing is it's imposing a critical result. Because of the way the combat system works, a sprain is something that can happen to you as a result of a critical. And it's just that little bit, there's that little bit more to it than just casting a bane spell of some kind that will deliver a penalty to your opponent. Sprain limb, a random part of a random limb is sprained. If it's part of a leg, movement is cut by 25%. Combat is at -10. If it's part of an arm, combat is modified by -20.
Yeah, you pissed me off now. May your ankle be forever twisted.
Yeah, so as a debuff, it's a good debuff, particularly good because it has a duration of permanent.
Yeah, you actually.
That doesn't mean that they're never going to recover. That means that once that spell is in place, you heal it normally.
Yeah.
And this game had because the criticals deliver stuff like that. This game has the healing rules for it. It's not just a hit point thing. It's you're healing from specific critical results.
Yeah.
So essentially, that is a wound that doesn't deliver hit point damage, but will give you an immediate low-level critical wound.
Penalty. Yeah. Deoxygenation. You just encountered the deoxygenation.
Well, if you get up to level 3 and touch of disruption.
Yeah. Oh my god, oxygen destroyer, basically. Deoxygenation 1. Caster can remove the oxygen in a 10-foot radius at the rate of 2% of the original oxygen
Just
each round.
realised. I bet yeah,
Simulate a
thought
hull
so.
breach.
We haven't been sharing chat since my
I have.
um
I've been having it flagged
no,
as
there was
shared
just nobody typing
chats.
in mine.
Oh.
So
By the dust in the stars, by the heat in the earth, by the salt in
yeah.
the ocean, I invoke standing up from a chair a little too fast.
Yeah, we had about 10 minutes
Oh,
of
sorry.
not sharing chat because when my stream glitched, it turned off the chat sharing,
Yeah.
which is probably if we'd been doing it the other way around, if you'd set up the stream together instead of me, that probably wouldn't have happened.
Oh, sorry.
But
Yeah.
because it was set up at my end when my stream glitched, it turned off the chat sharing. So
For
I've turned it
future
back on now, but we had about
reference,
10 minutes where they
yeah, for
weren't there.
future reference, Fish would do the invites the other way because I do have the slightly more stable connection.
Yeah, we can do it that way around. Mine seems to be perfectly stable when I'm not multi-streaming, but I'm multi-streaming to Leashing Bar guests as well as Fishnotghoti.
Yeah, I'm shooting this both to my YouTube and my Twitch, so yeah, it seems okay.
Yeah.
Oh god, imagine the deoxygenation as an assassination. You do it from the other while peeking through the hole in the wall next to the guy sleeping, who is your target, and you do that overnight.
Rolemaster is very much a game which rewards innovative players. It's not about rules as written, this does exactly this. It's about how can I make use of the ability that this spell gives me, or that this skill gives me. And that's one of the things I like about it, is it really does, it rewards imaginative play.
Yeah.
So Sorcerer and Mystic are both interesting hybrid spells. Both of them give you access to a lot of potential spell lists because you've got 2 realms worth of open and closed lists available to you as well as your base lists. At low levels, that's not going to be a big deal because at low levels, the odds are you're going to be focusing on your base lists. They're more powerful spell lists.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the open and closed lists give you more versatility. So hybrid spellcasters have a lot of versatility in this game.
Yeah. Crumbs. Sorry, just looking at soul destruction. Specifically level 2, possession 1. Target is possessed by a type 1 demon. Caster has no control over the target or demon. The demon will force the target to do random, not necessarily destructive things. Ah, okay.
Yeah. I suppose that's getting into a little bit of the thaumaturge, you know.
It is, yeah.
In inducing possession.
Inducing possession, I'm also thinking in terms
This
of
is the only
control.
game I know that has a spell for creating neuroses in people.
Fantastic.
And guilt. Target experiences chronic guilt over some action in his past. The GM should choose some significant event in the target's past. The target will not perform the same or similar actions again and must take steps to alleviate the guilt, acting to rectify the past wrong or, if that is impossible, a similar wrong. That, again, I saw that spell being used in the AP that I've been listening to recently. There was a guy, basically was a bit of a religious fanatic, and he was agitating a lot in the local area. And the innkeeper where the party was staying asked them if they could deal with him in a non-violent manner. And they came up with the idea that they could cast guilt on him and have him be guilty about the disruption that he was causing to business by agitating and thus not do it anymore. Didn't actually work out that way in the end because that's not where the plot went, but it was a valid idea.
Yeah. Yes, breaking down the different magics and expanding them out to the multiple subclasses is really interesting way of doing it.
There is a reason why this game has a separate book for its magic lists. There's no magic in the core rule book. You need spell lore for the magic lists, but spell lore is a... Hang on. Move up to before the index. The spell index starts on page 260. 204-ish. No,
Right.
earlier than that. About 260. Earlier than that. It's a long spell list. The spell
Mm.
index starts on page 258.
Okay.
So, and there is nothing in this book but spell lists, basically.
Yikes on the bike.
Yeah.
Mind death.
Because things like the attack tables for them, those are included in the core rulebook. Those are in core lore. So you can make fireball attacks without having the spell lore book if you want to invent your own spells.
Yeah.
But you get descriptions of the classes again in the beginning of spell lore, descriptions of how the spell types work, and the subtypes range, etc. And then the actual spell lists eventually start. Oh no, we've got the rules on learning spells, going into more detail on that than what's given in the core rule book. And then casting spells for chapter 4, which is presumably where we're going to get things like rules for overcasting. Modifiers for, that's one of the things I like actually about the different realms of magic have different modifiers for how you cast spells. So, for example, wearing a light helmet has no modifier for channeling or essence, but is a -25 when you're casting mentalism spells. Wearing any helmet is a penalty to mentalism spells because they're mind magic.
Okay.
No modifier for the other two types. On the other hand, you can do mentalism with no care at all for what you're saying. You don't need to say a word to do mentalism.
Mm.
But if you don't speak when casting essence magic, it's a -25. On the other hand, you can get a +10 bonus to your roll to cast a channeling spell by shouting it.
Oh my god, you can
And I
Pokemon
love
it.
these modifiers based on the different types of magic. So they
Yeah.
do have a different feel to them. Your channeling casters act differently to your mentalism casters. And then the hybrids have their own modifiers as well. For
Yeah.
Sverdar, absolutely, Chrono.
Yep, absolutely. I'm just thinking in terms of all the various light novels I've seen relatively recently, especially thinking like the Great Cleric, who will literally stand there in the middle of a battlefield and go, "Sod this, high heel," and instantly curing every single person within God knows how far of
And
them.
I mentioned spell fumbles, essentially spell failures. We've got the
Yeah.
charts for spell failures based on. There's a chart for each of the realms of magic, and that then has a column for the different types: elemental, force, informational, and utility spells. So
Mm-hmm.
if you were to roll, these are open-ended rolls, roll 96 or above, and you roll again and add to it. So the table's got up to 301 plus is the upper end of this.
Good lord.
If you roll 301 plus on an elemental channeling spell failure, which requires a bit of open-ended rolling to do,
Yeah.
but it can happen. Caster turns to ash. Anyone
Oh.
not of his faith and within 20 feet of the caster takes an E holy critical. That's the highest level of critical, by the way.
Oh my god.
A more reasonable result, say 41 to 60, caster loses spell and the normal number of power points. Be thankful it was no worse.
Yeah. I'm wondering, about mentalists.
Uh-huh.
When this, just thinking in
Mentalists
terms of
can
the
be fun.
same, because I am fully aware that
You
obviously
know,
this is a completely different setting, and therefore
there's,
Thaumaturge
there's a
per
lot
se does
more
not
besides the spell
exist.
lists.
I know,
There's a lot more besides the spell lists than I
I know.
expected in this book. You don't actually get to spell lists till chapter 6. So the first
Okay,
57 pages is more detailed spell rules that aren't in the core
yeah,
rulebook. But you've still then got 200 pages of spell lists. And this is on a scale that each page is one spell list, and each spell list has a spell running from level 1 through to 20,
right,
then a level 25, a level 30, a level 35, a level 40, and a level 50. So there are 25 spells on each of those 200 pages. Some of those are the same spell, duplicated in different spell lists at different levels, but that's
right,
still a heck of a lot of spells.
yeah.
Don't know what they're claiming on this one, but the older editions claimed over 2,000 spells.
Hmm.
They probably still are claiming over 2,000 spells, I imagine.
Did you say the Magent
No, they
was
haven't given a number.
but not hybrid, semi-mentalism?
They are certainly semi. I believe they are mentalism. Let me just quickly check. Since they're in spell lore, I don't even need to change books. Let's look at the mentalism spellcasters. They are semi-spellcasters, and they are semi-spellcasters of... Great, that description doesn't tell me. I'll look in the core rulebook.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they're mentalism. They've copy-pasted the description from the core rulebook into spell lore, but the difference is spell lore groups all of the semi-spellcasters together, whereas the core rulebook groups all of the mentalism spellcasters together.
Gotcha.
So in the core rulebook, it doesn't need to tell you what realm of magic it is. And so when they copy-pasted it, it doesn't.
Yeah, so your semi is
game
magent.
is perfect.
Your pure is mentalist.
Yeah.
So who are the hybrids?
The hybrids were the was it healer or lay healer, whichever one was the hybrid version. Healer is the hybrid version. Those are channeling and mentalism. And the mystic was essence and mentalism.
Right, okay, yeah. So we come back round to mystic then. It kind of suck on combat skills. Really not designed
Pure
for
spell
it,
users, pure and hybrid spell users will always suck on combat skills.
Yeah. I'm kind of torn between a mystic and a magent.
Both interesting classes.
Yeah.
Or professions, rather.
Mentalist is lovely. And would actually fit my character quite nicely. Because an awful lot of it is dealing with the fact that probably he's distrusted, hated, and confused at all times. So the ability to read people and, you never saw me, and do the whole Jedi mind trick thing, probably works quite nicely. On the other hand, I am cognizant of the fact that you want to run him solo, and therefore he'll die. So maybe
mind control level 2, sleep.
Yeah. I love that.
Mind attack starts fairly weak with jolt. Mentalism generally is viewed as lower power than the other realms of magic. But they also, they have less penalties in terms of, for example, apart from wearing a helmet, you can wear whatever armor you want and it's probably not going to bother you. You don't need to speak or gesture to cast the spells.
Mind-controlled villages you call hirelings, yeah.
Yeah.
Understandable.
I mean, you could, if you're willing to spend the points on it at higher levels, and suffer in terms of other skills, you can potentially learn mentalism, mentalist-based lists with a semi or a hybrid spell user. So a mystic could learn the mentalist-based lists, but they would be expensive. Without actually looking it up to confirm, I would guess those are the ones that are going to cost 7 points per rank.
Yeah, I keep
or 10 points per second
round
rank.
To mentalist. I'm just wondering about instead of simply compromising and going with either the hybrid or the semi. Just bite the bullet, especially when you said that it's generally considered wussier. Be considered lower, but there's a lot there that you can do a lot with at low level.
Oh yeah,
it's presence 1 in the
a lot of the magic
list.
in Rolemaster is down to how you use it.
Yeah. Presence 1. Caster is aware of the presence of all sentient or thinking beings within range. Okay.
Yeah. It's got a limited range, 10 foot per level, but
that's usually enough for, who's the other side of this door.
Yeah.
Caster is aware of a general idea of the race and level of one being. This being must first be located by using presence, true, or awareness. So for feel 1.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's a little bit like psionics in D&D, certainly second edition in this respect, that in that you first had to make contact with their mind to use most things. So there was a psionic attack to make contact with their mind, and then you could use abilities on them. So here you're using presence to establish that there they are, and then you use other spells on them.
Oh,
including potentially Mind Store, where you
I
just
was
you
just
can
looking
make
at that.
effectively a record of who this person is.
Yeah. No, oddly enough, I was just thinking that ties in so strongly to the investigative elements in Thaumaturge. The needing to get a trace of someone off their presence, off their personality, and the traces they've left. Um, that's it's really interesting. Sense control,
And
action numbing, blur vision.
you know, if you're being sneaky, things like
Yeah.
distraction or blur vision are
Yes,
wonderfully
level 1.
useful.
Please do
I mean,
take a
distraction,
minus
obviously.
30 on
How am I
everything.
going to get? Yeah.
Random limb of target is numb and useless. Blur vision.
There's some fun stuff in that.
Yeah.
Um,
Tag. Loud imaginary
Merge
sounds.
with Mentalist. That's a spell I might need to look up and see what it does.
Yeah? What's that? Where's that one?
On
Mind merge?
what was the list called? I was just looking at it. Yeah.
Allows 2 mentalism spell users to communicate mentally and exchange power points. Oh. Well.
Yeah. So share your magic points.
Yeah.
That's neat. Mind merge, moving up to mind merge, allows caster and target to interchange thoughts. If both are mentalism spell users, they can interchange power points. They must be able to see each other, or the caster must know the exact location of the target, or the caster must use focus merge to locate the target. In all cases, the target must also be within range. But merging, effectively creating for the duration of the spell a telepathic connection.
Yeah.
Charles Xavier style with another party member, and if they happen to be a mentalist, sharing each other's PowerPoints.
Yeah.
That could
when
be
cast within 1 minute before a mind merge or ready merge or hive mind spell, I haven't even looked at hive mind, but I'm going to be. This spell allows the caster to focus on
what
specific
merge with
persons
mentalist? You know what merge with mentalist would work for?
Yeah.
I can't see any reason why it wouldn't anyway. Healers, while hybrids are hybrids of mentalism and channeling. So you could.
Sorry, you dropped out.
Their PowerPoint running low because they've been doing a lot of healing.
Oh, right. Recharge them.
Yeah, the idea of being able to share your PowerPoints with the healer sounds very useful.
It does. Let's have a look. Oh, I do like prepare merge. That's handy. Doubles the...
Increasing the range of the incoming spell.
No, not doubles. Increases by 20 the range
Increases
of the original
by
spell.
20, yeah.
Alien Thoughts. Inner Thoughts. Ready Merge. Mind Switch. Oh, good.
Yeah, I mean, there you're getting up to high-level spells. Mind Switch is level 13. But
H.P. Lovecraft,
yeah, that's where you start getting into all kinds of fun stuff.
Yeah. I had to look up Hive Mind. Range is 50 feet per level, as per Mind Merge 1, and multiple minds may be merged. The location of the various minds must be known to the caster. The caster must have merged with each of them before, and there's a limit of 1 mind for every caster, 5 caster levels. Any of the merged minds may interchange power points if they share a realm. Bloody hell.
So yeah, that is the full-on X-Men telepathic connection, and then some.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I kind of like that.
So once again, this is Rolemaster from Iron Crown Enterprises, available
Yeah.
from Drive-Thru RPG both in PDF and print on demand. If you want a game that has a bit more meat to it, it will leave you needing to figure out for yourself how some elements of it work because they're a little bit sketchy on the rules. But if you want a game that is far more involved, that you can really dive into, then I highly recommend it.
Absolutely.
If you just want a casual game, D&D, however.
Share your PowerPoints and deliver presentations with each direct to your audience. I like Microsoft Hive Mind. That appeals to
like
me.
That.
Okay. I'm going to go then with Mentalist because I'm going to make your life difficult. I think.
Okay.
Um,
Right, so leave us explain what the professional and knack references there are.
Your
Currently, it will be saying professional skills 0 out of 10, knack bonus 0 out of 10.
Yep.
So, what does that actually mean? Let's make sure I'm getting this absolutely right by finding the appropriate page. And how this works is that... Right. Professional bonuses. Due to constant use and practice, a character chooses 10 skills from the 15 listed to get a bonus of +1 per rank in that skill to a maximum of +30.
Okay.
Then we have knacks. Characters also have skills with which they find themselves particularly adept, a sort of natural ability. Character chooses 2 skills from the 15 listed that each get a fixed +5 bonus. The bonus and number of skills can vary if the GM uses a different power level.
Right.
So, the way they've done it in here is they've represented it as 10 points to split among the skills with a maximum of 5 in each skill for knack, rather than 2 at +5. I think I'd like to stick with as it's written in the book for the moment.
Okay.
Just because we don't know the system particularly well.
Yeah.
So initially you'll get the 10 professional skills that you get to choose, and each of them will get a bonus per level.
Is that what the plus button's doing? Yes.
That's what we've got. So the plus button, looking at this, is indeed adding that bonus. So, for example, you click the plus on attunement, it's giving you +1 per rank.
What does Grace do? Magical expertise.
Grace. Let us look it up. I thought Grace was to do with clerical magic, but since it's here as a professional skill for
it's under magical expertise,
maybe not.
And thank you for anyone who is sticking around and watching the ad break. Your presence is appreciated.
Grace reduces penalties.
Hang on. It saves me having pre-rolls. Sorry, carry on, Fish.
Right. Grace reduces penalties for casting spells of a higher level than the caster. So I mentioned earlier there's a way of overcasting and trying to use higher level spells. That is the skill in doing that at less risk.
Yeah.
The other magical expertise skills are Transcendence, which reduces the spellcasting penalties associated with armor where appropriate. And Spell Trickery reduces penalties to spellcasting attempts due to attempts to hide or modify its visual effects or hand or voice usage. Right. And that has to be specialized in a particular particular spell list. So yeah, you can learn specifically to cast your spells subtly and secretly. So let's just pick skills for profession skills for the mentalist that is I'm creating alongside Druts.
Just attunement.
And then the box is the knack bonus.
Yeah.
Attunement. Some items require attunement prior to using some or all of their abilities, as opposed to a magical sword with plus 10 OB, where you would normally get the bonus even if you were unaware of it. Again, this is something that Rolemaster has had since the 1980s, and D&D only introduced with 5th edition. Rolemaster has always been a bit ahead of its time, but it's also very niche and sometimes can feel a bit clunky if you're not used to it.
Yeah. Did you say 2 at +5, yeah? Or knacks?
Yes, 2 at +5. I'm going to stick with it as written in the core book.
Okay. Let's go. Base spell master. I wonder what the closed lid.
Would you like me to have a quick look and tell you?
No, thank you, Alia. It's still kind of new for, and yes, please. It's still kind of a bit of a novelty for me having the ads, even though I've got both chat and Geiger shouting about it. And Fish apparently has a seagull in his living room.
Yeah, apparently. This is the problem with what the weather's been like lately, where I have found the need to actually open my sitting room window. So closed mentalism lists. We start with attack avoidance, which gives us things like turn missile, turn blade, shield, etc., etc.
Yep.
Then gas manipulation, which again gives us condensation, warm air, thick fog, air wall, that kind of stuff. Less powerful than the base list versions, but still there.
Yeah.
Liquid manipulation, boil liquid, freeze liquid, clear liquid, desalination. Mind's Door. Mind's Door gets to be a fun one. Again, less powerful than if such spells turn up on the base lists, but starts with door opening, which is essentially it's open close from D&D. It's not knock. It doesn't deal with locks.
Right.
It can. There's a 10% chance of a locked door unlocking when you cast door opening, but only a 10% chance. But if it's not locked, it will open the door. Then we get into the fun stuff. Starting with leave item 1. Caster teleports a single inanimate object to a point up to 100 feet away from its current location. There can be no intervening barriers in a direct line between the target and the point. The object has a maximum weight of 1 pound per level of the caster. It's got a range of 50 feet. So pick something within 50 feet of you, teleport it 100 feet away so long as nothing's in the way. Then minor leaving. Caster teleports to a point up to 50 feet away, but there can be no intervening barriers in a direct line between the target and the point.
Okay.
3rd level, your first teleport spell.
Yep.
Short range teleport, but you can do it from 3rd level.
Closed spell mastery, taking that as my second. My first knack is base spell mastery, my second is closed. I've decided they are apparently a natural born spell chucker.
Yeah.
Now, let me just check back on my race. I have a penalty to essence resistance, but nothing else on any of the others, so it's not a problem.
Yeah.
Plus, I love the idea of being able to see in different colours, because it's going to make you have to describe things like I was a bloody mantis shrimp. Character creation
now,
then
the
wants
combat...
me to go...
We then move to assigning costs to weapon categories.
Yeah.
Now, in the descriptions of the classes, it had already got them pre-assigned, but those are not necessarily the way it works. The way it works in the rulebook is that it presents you with 4 cost categories, and you choose where they're going to be during character creation. So you decide
Ah.
what you want to focus in. If you want to ranged weapons to be your main thing, then you put the
Mm.
cheapest cost into ranged weapons. You can drag the boxes to swap them around.
Gotcha.
Ostensibly. There we go.
Okay,
That
so
will let me do
it
it.
defaults to melee, ranged, shield, and unarmed. Hang on a
Yeah,
moment.
so
Let me
for
just go
example, on
back and
mine, I've
check.
just swapped it round so that I've got the cheapest 5/7 on ranged weapons because I
Yeah.
want my mentalist to stand at the back and use a bow, then melee, then shield, and then unarmed. But I think I'm actually going to move them around. I'm going to swap unarmed and melee for starters. Then I'm going
Right.
to swap shield and melee. So it's now going cheapest on ranged, then unarmed, then melee weapons, then shield. So I've got a character who's going to be, in terms of how easy it is to develop skills, shooting people first, then punching them in the head. And they're really crap with a shield. They just don't know how those things work.
Okay, so I am starting with unarmed being my easiest because I've got claws. Um,
Ah.
and the style name over on the right-hand side there are little arrows pointing in. That's something I can add.
Yeah, so what you've got there, those style names are the ones that are defined already by your race.
Right.
Those are unarmed combat styles,
Right.
and they should take whatever cost you have assigned to unarmed.
They have.
Good. And so those are the things that you already have. Normally, unarmed combat is strikes and sweeps. Strikes is
Right.
hitting people. Strikes is karate, sweeps is judo, if you want to put it
Yeah,
in
yeah.
martial arts terms. Claw is also there for you because you are a solar gear and you have them.
Yep. Yep.
So you also have claw. Those are predefined. Those are already there. You don't need to worry about those. Those are
Okay.
style names that you've already got. On this page, you can define what weapon skills you want on your character sheet, essentially. So, for example, I want a ranged weapon, so I go to category, I use the drop down, swap it to ranged weapons, and then I can pick, for example, longbow. Let's have longbow.
Hmm.
And then I can add that to my style list, and it will give the cost for ranged weapons, and it'll be in my stuff. So on my character sheet, that will be, hopefully, that will be there. The arrow lets you edit it, and the cross lets you remove it
Right.
from those. The three that were there as default, you don't need to edit or remove. They're going to be fine. One thing that this doesn't do is it doesn't make any distinction. It will happily let you choose combat training, ranged weapons, and then pick, for example, falchion,
Yeah.
because the software hasn't been programmed to know that that's not a ranged weapon. So
Yeah.
you just have
Also,
to use common sense
fireballs
when
come under
setting these
melee
up.
weapons.
Yeah, now fireballs come under everything, comes under everything.
Yeah.
I need to check whether you can whether fireballs can be learnt this way. In previous editions, they didn't come under weapon skills. I'm not sure whether such things are now handled using the weapon skills. There used to be a directed spells skill, essentially, that had to be learnt for a particular spell. So you would have directed spells fireball.
Yeah.
And that would give you a bonus when attacking people with fireballs. So, right, as per the rulebook here, ranged weapons, muscle-powered thrown weapons, as well as mechanical devices that fire low-velocity projectiles. So, not fireballs.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what we would need for fireballs off the top of my head.
Okay. So I've taken rapier. Is that appropriate for the Republic?
I've pretty much told you earlier on everything I've got written down for the Republic.
Okay.
So if you're taking rapier, then I guess it is now.
Okay. I hope you don't mind.
No, I'm okay with that. Whoops.
I like the
Bluetooth's
idea
just
of a
falling out.
fencing
Can't hear a
lizard.
damn thing. Now it's back. Fencing lizard, yeah.
Well, I figure if I'm using a claw attack potentially, I don't necessarily want to go two-handed weapons. I kind of like the idea of being able to do basically rapier main gauche type things, but rapier main.
Yeah.
What's the maximum result thing? Is that the maximum result on the
You
to hit
just
table,
yeah,
or leave as is
yes,
at
it is.
999?
Just
Okay,
ignore that because we're not adjusting anything there,
okay.
so we can just leave it as it is.
So
Uh,
modification, fumble, critical.
Again, this basically lets you customize things. So, for
Right, okay,
example,
gotcha.
if you could say, right, well, we're creating a weapon that is essentially a falchion, but it's a falchion that uses crush criticals instead of slash
Right, with you.
criticals because it's blunt, for example. So you can
Okay.
muck about, customize things on this page. Obviously, this page, we hope, is accessible during character advancement so that things can be added at a later date that you haven't thought
Yeah.
about when creating your character at level 1. So for now, as far as I'm concerned, I've added my longbow. I've got the unarmed combat things already there. I'm going to move on to the next page, which is
Right, I'm
culture.
just sorting
If you
out my
wish to
bow because
add a few
I
more bits and pieces on yours, then
yeah
obviously feel free to do so. It's
I
your
will
character.
do so. Oh no, that could work. And I've done this before in Rolemaster because I like it in Rolemaster because there's very few games that give you a bowler. A bowler, not a
Mm-hmm.
bowler.
And the way such things work in Rolemaster is far better than in most games
Hmm.
because Rolemaster has essentially grappling criticals.
Yeah.
So rather than just you've hit, you are or are not grappled, there are specific results based on how well it hits that can disable body parts, things like that.
Hmm.
And you can get grappling and unbalancing criticals indeed. So it's not just that a bull rush doesn't just knock people down. You can roll an unbalancing critical that might knock them down, might just knock them off balance, might give them penalties for a while they find their feet,
Hmm.
stuff like that. There are subdual critical tables specifically for the trying to knock people out. It's a very involved combat system, and a lot of people over the years have looked at it and gone, "Oh my god, what is this? I'm not playing that. That's completely unplayable." In reality, the core game system is essentially boils down to roll a D percentile, add your skill. Did you get 101 or higher? If yes,
Yeah.
you've succeeded. That's at its heart. You can go into more than that. Like a 76 to 100 is a near miss, etc., etc. There are more. You can go into more depth on it, but at its heart,
Hmm.
it is just: did I get 101? If so, I have succeeded. Combat, because of the tables, looks complicated, but is actually no more complicated than something like D&D. When you think about D&D, you roll a die, you add your bonus, you compare that to the opponent's armor class, you then roll damage. If you've rolled a critical, you roll extra damage. If you have special abilities that are granting you extra damage, you roll them. Rolemaster, you roll a die, you add your modifiers, you compare that to your opponent's armor class. That will tell you how much damage you've done and whether there is a critical to roll on. If there is, you roll again on the critical table. That's it. That's the
Okay.
whole procedure. It's no more complicated. It just looks complicated because there are tables and people don't like tables. The thing is, tables are easier than maths. You just look up on a table. You don't have to.
Okay.
You have to add the numbers, but then it becomes easy.
Rant over?
There was no rant. I was just talking about Rolemaster.
No ranty. Moving on to culture.
Moving on to
Um,
culture.
so
So, we know that you have left the Solar Gear
yep,
and have been raised among the Inner Republic.
yep,
We know that the Inner Republic is a cosmopolitan area where individual settlements are governed by Athenian democracy, and that they then send a representative to a Grand Council, a
yeah,
Senate in Greyhall, which makes broad policy decisions.
yeah,
But overall, it's a fairly light government and an Athenian democracy in the individual settlements.
Okay.
Our types of culture are very much influenced by the environment in which you've been raised. So we have cosmopolitan culture. That's for big cities, really.
Yeah.
Cosmopolitan and metropolitan can be deemed interchangeable in this. Large cities tend to have very finely specialized craftsmen, and the majority of their economy is devoted to trade and commerce. And we get harsh. Harsh is pretty much what it sounds like. Are you living on the tundra or other such difficult environments where survival is a big part of your life? Highlanders live in rough hills or mountainous terrain, usually somewhat isolated by the local geography and limited in food sources by lack of flat land.
Okay.
Mariner cultures are usually located along the shores of an ocean, lake, or river, and their economies are usually fishing and trade based. Now, we've defined this that the coasts belong to the solar gear and the seas belong to the sea crowd, but that doesn't mean you can't have a maritime culture based on a lake or river, for example, if that's what you want. Nomadic cultures tend to center around herding or hunting, driving their food supply with them or following its migration. That could happen within the inner republic, moving from town to town, itinerant workers, etc. Reavers are societies of raiders. That's not going to be appropriate for the inner republic.
No.
Rural would be obviously, plenty of smaller settlements and farms and so forth for a rural culture. Sylvan peoples are woodland dwellers who may practice some limited herding and or farming, but mostly live by hunting and gathering in their rich environment. There's likely to be woods in the Inner Republic, so Sylvan is an acceptable culture here. Underground, overground, wombling free.
I was being very
people who spend most or all of their time underground or inside vast structures are of this culture. So that's your dwarf, obviously, is underground. But I like that we've separated them away from the races. So if you want Sylvan dwarves, this game will let you have Sylvan dwarves.
Yeah.
If you want underground elves, this game will let you have underground elves. You can mix and match.
Why does Rolemaster always make me want to play Small World?
Because of that mix and match thing, I feel, yeah. And then finally, urban dwellers are the people who live in the towns and small cities of a settled area. So that's going to be your default culture for urban and rural are going to be the default cultures for the Inner Republic, but there are a number of those that can be fitted into that environment without trouble based on what you want and how you feel your parent who brought you away from the solar gear lands. Where would they have gone? Would they have tried to hide within an urban area? Would they have gone to a rural area where they're more noticeable because there's less people, but at the same time, they could, if they find acceptance, they're just going to be a part of the normal environment. Would they have gone to a wooded area where maybe they can get a little bit more isolation when they want it by moving further into the woods? Would they have joined a highland group up there with the sheep on top of the high hills and low mountains within the Republic? What would you like your character to be?
I would like him to be urban. I don't know when he became a him. He's still kind of a him or a her at the moment. But
it's interesting the way that happens with characters, isn't it? They shape themselves in your head, and at some point you realise that you've kind of made a decision that you'd never thought about.
Yeah, at the moment I am tending towards him being a him. I like the idea of urban, but I can also see Daddy having basically stolen me as an egg and tried to do the Highland thing or Sylvan, and it just not working. So I like the idea of him having been a people person, even though people don't like him from the get-go. So I'm going to go with urban. I think he probably tried to raise him isolationist and just realised it was not going to happen.
So, selecting urban, straight away, our culture then gives us some details about the character. It tells us, for example, what crafts and vocations are appropriate.
Okay.
That's not going to show up necessarily straight away here, but I'll read it out from the book. as with cosmopolitan culture, any craft is appropriate for an urban culture. Vocations, it gives examples of bookkeeper, guardsman, librarian, manager, merchant, officer, scribe, soldier, valet, and any type of craftsman.
Okay.
And then it gives us some skills. And the way is each culture gives you a set of skill ranks to be spent during your childhood when you're growing up. And so for urban, first off, we have 1 rank in animal handling. Now we can see that is just showing 1 rank in animal handling.
Okay.
What fun. Bots. And it's been auto-timed out, so I'm not going to worry about it for now.
Okay, I'll deal with it.
Then again, awareness perception, that just gives us 2 ranks, no choices to be made there, and 1 rank in body development. Body development is how hit points are handled in this game. Rather than it being at each level your class determines how many hit points you get, your class determines the cost of body development, and the body development skill determines how many hit points you've got. All very, very handy and quite cool. Then we get onto the ones where there are choices. So combat training unarmed. We have got, as an urban individual, we have got 1 free rank in an unarmed combat training skill. So we've got claw strikes and sweeps already on the books because we set them up during the combat and profession portion, which is why they put that before culture, I feel, because otherwise these skills wouldn't be on the board to be able to select them. So for my character, I am going to give them 1 rank in claw, which is one of those 3 unarmed combat training skills that are available to me. Then we have 1 rank, or 3 ranks rather. We can choose 1 or 2 skills. So we can have up to 2 ranks per skill in up to 3 composition skills.
Hang on a sec.
And our composition skills are illusion crafting, musical composition, and writing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That is well worth noting that the shared chat also gives you shared modding. That's a very useful thing because I have sod all mods. I've got a mod. She's on stream with me.
Yes, I know. Now, however,
so I was just going to worry about it later, but I'd forgotten that, of course, the shared modding would deal with it.
Now I know where the OBS chat hides the mod controls, however, because I could bring up the entry on the bot, and then it was like, and I can get rid of him where?
So now I know. For my character, I'm not going to go with illusion crafting. I'm going to assume he's not going to learn any illusions.
Yeah.
There probably are some illusions available under the mentalism open and closed lists, but I haven't looked through and decided to run them, so I'm going to leave illusion crafting out. I'm going to put 2 ranks in writing and 1 in musical composition. So my character has some writing skills.
Right. I'm working my way down the list. So combat training unarmed.
So the first choice you have to make is which of your 3 unarmed combat skills you want to put
going with
your
claw.
3 rank into. Going with the claws, not being all pacifistic and going for sweeps. Then
no. If I want pacifistic fish, I'll make you forget I was ever here. If I actually get into it.
Yeah, fair enough. That makes sense. Then you want to just slice people to pieces with your claws once you get into it.
Composition and performance.
So you've got 3 ranks to spend on composition and performance skills. You can put up to 2 ranks in any one of those skills.
Question: would illusion crafting be strictly for the creation of illusions, or would it be creating something believable? For example, in terms of a mentally induced hallucination.
That is an interesting question. Right, the crafting of illusions is a fine art, and the work of an artist compels where the effort of a hack may barely pass as concealment. Illusions are often used to deceive, and illusion crafting may be used to ensure verisimilitude or even to imitate real creatures, items, or individuals. However, illusions may also be used to entertain or to subtly or overtly support other types of performance. Speech may benefit from greater acoustic resonance or timely illumination in shadow, while illusions may cover shabby props and sets on a performance stage.
Mm-hmm.
I think any mind manipulation that you are doing which affects their senses, I think illusion crafting could be applied to.
I think that sounds like an excellent idea then.
Yeah,
So I've got
that's how I'm going to
3.
interpret that. I will let you use that.
Yeah, I've got another 2 ranks. Can I put them into the same skill, or
You
do
can
I have
put
to
up to
split
two
them up?
ranks in each in any.
Right.
You can
Okay.
put them up to 2 ranks in any skill. So you can't have all 3 in illusion crafting, for
No,
example.
I'm
But
putting
you
one
could have
into
2 in
writing.
illusion crafting and 1 in one of the others.
Yeah, I like the idea of a wannabe novelist.
Yeah. So next we get on to the crafting and vocation.
Okay.
And there we have got, as an urban character, we have got 7 ranks.
Hmm.
Again, up to 2 ranks per skill.
Yeah.
So split 7 points between these skills with no more than 2 in any one of them. I am going to have 2 ranks in culinary and 2 ranks
Yeah.
in drawing and painting, because I think that goes along with my writing.
Yeah.
I mean, this character is probably never going to be used. I'm just doing through this because that way there is a character being created on my channel as well as on your channel, because I'm not
Apologies.
sharing your screen.
Yeah. Sorry, we need to sort that out for future reference.
If this hadn't been such a short notice
Yeah.
stream, we maybe could have worked that out and shared a copy of Era as we were going through. But obviously, we were supposed to be playing Liminal today. That fell through because neither of us had considered the Father's Day issue.
Yeah.
And
Sorry.
so I just suggested, well, let's have a look at
Yeah.
Rolemaster. I've been wanting to do this for a while. Let's get that done. So we're on here a little bit slapdash.
Okay, what did Daddy do when he came? I think. Okay.
So I've put mine 2 each in culinary and painting, and then 1 each in fabric, leather, and wood.
Okay, I think Daddy was an artist. I think he was a pacifistic artist who basically had had enough of their rough ways.
You know, you do realise that so far, by coincidence, my character choices on this do match your father. I could be creating your father here.
Oh, that's slightly scary. Sorry.
Why is that a thing to apologise for?
Yeah, that's right.
I can up this character a couple of levels and use him as an NPC at the end of the day if this carries on. Or I can make my choices based on what your character choices are for what your who your father was.
Leather and fabric craft for the purposes of improvise or having to modify my own clothes from a young age.
Yeah.
That kind of works.
That's kind of how I was thinking when I put a rank into each of them. I was thinking in terms of either through isolationism, being slightly apart from the regular culture, or locally aren't cut for a solar gear. Being able to modify your own, patch and modify your own stuff is probably going to be important. So we'll have some ranks in fabric and leathercraft.
Culinary. Come on, Joe, for God's sake. So I wasn't entirely listening to what you were putting in, but I've gone for 2 ranks in culinary, 2 ranks in drawing and painting, 1 rank in fabric, and 2 in leathercraft.
Okay, that's almost exactly the same as I picked, except that my leathercraft is only 1, and I put a point into woodcraft for good measure.
Fair enough.
Just in case he needs a chair.
Yeah. Lore.
So next up, we get 7 ranks for laws. And again, looking at the rulebook, it tells us that it doesn't tell us any restrictions on laws. Now, I'm guessing we can only have 2 ranks because you can only get 2 ranks. The cost is only showing 2 ranks per level cost. So I think it's 2 ranks for each of. Yeah.
Right, because otherwise I was thinking you could have a maximum of 6 ranks, and there were only 3 skills.
No. Anything with the little arrow next to it is a drop down. So
Yeah,
we can have, for example, creature, lord, demon, dragon, fairy, or undead.
yeah.
I'm not sure if at this stage we can add others, because Rolemaster's quite versatile on its skills. It's
Mm,
very easy to add new skills in, but I'm not sure how well the software lets us do that, at least at this
yeah,
stage. For our materials lore, however, given that we have ranks in crafting for it, I'm going to take one
yeah.
each in fabric and leather, and I'm
Oddly
going to take
enough,
one in wood, because all three of those I have the crafting skill for, so it makes sense
going with
to have those.
spell.
Also, I think we've already got 3 ranks in neighboring region lore and 1 rank in only region lore. Now, when we get to customize
Yeah.
that neighboring region lore, I am going to, I'm going to actually impose a value on you there, I'm afraid.
Oh, that's no problem.
And I will let you choose which way around they go, but one of those will be whatever the solar gear area that your father came from
Okay.
is, and the other will be the Inner Republic. Um, I think more likely for your character that your own lore would be classed as Inner Republic, but you would know about
Yeah.
the place that your father came from. In his case, he would have, of course, grown up in the Solar Gear realm, so that would be his own lore, and neighbouring would be Inner Republic.
Mm. Okay, I'm
We
going
also get
with
1 rank in religion philosophy without making a
yeah.
choice.
I'm going with 2 ranks in spell lore. Seems silly not to.
That makes
Um,
sense.
a rank each in leather and fabrics. 1 in history, and 2, I think, in dragon. I like the idea that he is fascinated by
Interesting.
dragons.
By dragons. Yeah. So, assuming this is your father has 1
Mm.
in history, 1 each in fabric, leather, and wood materials lore,
Yeah.
and 1 in spell lore.
Fair enough.
So there is
Social
some
then.
overlap there. And yeah, that moves us on to social. We have 2 ranks for social.
Can only put
We
into
can see that we
influence. I
already
can.
have, we have 2 ranks each in social awareness and trading already
Mm-hmm.
for free. But there are a number of influence skills. We can have charm, duping, and intimidation. And we've
Oh,
got 2
hello.
ranks to split between those.
What's the
And where
difference
we have a choice like
mechanically?
that, there is a maximum of 2 per rank, per
Yeah.
skill, obviously.
What is the difference between charm and duping? Because there seems to me to be quite a
Uh,
crossover there.
I would, without looking it up, which I'm going to do, but before I look it up,
Mm.
my instinct is to say that you're looking at persuasion and deceit in terms of D&D skills there.
Right.
So charm being honesty and duping being dishonesty as
Mm-hmm.
to how you're dealing with the person that you're talking to. But let
Okay,
me
let's
look at
put
the
a ranking
skills list. And we are looking for social skills, so we should be under S. Okay. Charm involves knowing how to approach and interact with people so that they like you more and are willing to do you favors. Duping knows how to lie, bluff, dissemble, or spin the truth convincingly.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, I think that matches my guesswork pretty much,
Yeah.
doesn't it? It's
Okay, yeah,
being
I'm going to
nice to
bung a
people or
rank in
conning them.
each. I don't think he's very good at intimidating them.
I've gone with the other option for Pappy. He's got a
Mm-hmm.
rank in charm because he wants to be accepted here, but he's also got a rank in intimidation because he came from the Solar Gear realm where displays of force were almost the equivalent of displays of charm in a more civilized realm. So
Yeah.
he grew up with the idea that he needs to be
Yeah,
exercising his power.
I reckon my mentalist has decided that he's grown up having to put effort into not intimidating people
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
because
that
he
makes sense because
knows
he's
he's hard enough
naturally
to read.
intimidating to look at
Yeah.
already. So he's tried to go the other way and counter
Yeah.
that with
I was just having a look at the
skills at
vocation skills, but we can't
charming
have
and
any.
duping.
It was crafting and vocation. I thought
Yeah,
I'd check there was nothing under vocation that was available, and there isn't. Not for me, anyway.
No, we don't get any ranks for vocation. Nobody gets any ranks for vocation.
Well, it was
They're
under
just
crafting
there
and
because it's
vocation.
listing this. It's
Sure.
showing the skills list. Oh yeah, that's a good point. Crafting and vocation. Yeah, don't know whether. Hang on, let me just check something. If I remove something from crafting, will it add? No, it won't add anything to vocation. No. So, oh, hang on. They're drop downs. Yeah, we can. So if you want anything from vocation, you can drop it from crafting. Okay. But because they're all the way down at the bottom there, I missed them initially. So do I want to give him? I think I'm not going to give Pappy any vocation skills at this point.
Oh, I can't take them. They're not available to me.
They should be. If you've already spent all of your points in crafting, they
I've just taken a point. Oh, no, that's law because I'm an idiot. Hang on. Let's take a point out of that one.
But yeah, if you look at the drop downs on administration, service,
that's just me being blind
trade,
to that.
there's a whole big list of skills that you can
anything
put
actually
some ranks into.
I was just.
Remember that these are your, of course. These are your cultural background skills, essentially. This is what did you grow up with.
Yeah.
It's reasonable to grow up with vocation skills, but it's also reasonable to grow up not having any vocation skills.
Yeah.
If your father was, for example, a trapper, then trade trapper as a background skill that you learned as a child makes sense. If, on the other hand, your father was a scribe, then you wouldn't have picked up that skill. You'd learn any trapping skills later when you get to level 1 and go out into the rest of the world. The more you think about, this is not telling you, you know this, but this is just to the world in general over the stream. The more you think about choices like that when you're picking your cultural skills, the more you shape in your mind what your character's background would have been like and thus who your character actually is. So it makes for good role play to be thinking this stuff.
Okay, moving on to languages, because I've just noticed it's coming up to 11
o'clock. Right, moving on to languages.
It's very late, and we're on 3 hours.
Yeah. We have 17 ranks to spend on languages. Now, this page is showing us how the language ranks work out, which is very useful. So we can see that the normal speaking level of the native population is rank 5 for spoken. And spoken and written ranks are learned separately.
Right.
So let's just have our first language simply called Republican, since we are part of the Inner Republic.
No, not like that.
And we will let our father speak both of these. It does give us suggestions when we click into the box if we've typed things before. Okay. But we're going to ignore those. The suggestions. Actually, we won't ignore all of them. I've already got trade tongue written in, which I think I added when experimenting with character creation previously. I'm going to add trade tongue as a pigeon, basically.
Is that all one
used
word
between the language? So that would be one word. That would be the common speech, essentially. Okay. So I'm going to add that at rank 3, which is conversation on simple subjects using whole sentences instead of broken phrases. User can understand everyday conversation when spoken slowly. Recognition of major dialects. So that, to be honest, I would say is probably the skill rank of the average UK immigrant. Some are higher, but on average, I would say that's probably where they're at. You know, they don't particularly sound like they're local, but you can have a conversation with them. They know what you're talking about, but you might need to speak slower when you're getting into either more complex thoughts or whatever. So we'll go with that for trade tongue, and we're going to need a language for the solar gift. For the moment, rather than come up with a name for it, we will just try and remember how to spell solar gift.
I copy-pasted it off the top.
Oh, yeah, it's up there. And as it happens, I spelt it right. Yay me.
Yay.
And again, I'm going to give him, actually, I'm not going to be able to give him quite as many ranks as I had hoped. He's going to really, as a native Solar Gear speaker, he's going to need 5 ranks in Solar Gear. So, and I will set, I'm going to set that as his native tongue. It seems to have automatically set Republican as his native tongue. Possibly because it was the first one I put in.
You can just
yeah,
click
it's
on the
not
box.
letting me click on Solar Gear for some. It's not giving me a box for Solar Gear for some reason, and I don't know why. I'm confused by
possibly,
this.
I don't know. Because that was the only one. No, that was the only one you put in. I put in Trade Tongue. That let me have it.
Yeah, Trade Tongue has a box. Solar Gear doesn't. I'm confused by this. Okay, so I am going to. I've just removed those, but I'm going to put them. I'm going to put Republican back in.
Okay.
So Solar Gear, when you did it, is letting you have it. Yeah.
Not as native, but yeah. There's no box.
Yeah. Now I think it's because it's recognizing it as a race name.
Oh, I wonder if.
I think it's treating it differently because it has a race name. So I'm going to try.
Put an eye on the end.
I'm going to add in. No, it's not. I just gave it a name of Swamp Talk, and again, it's not letting me have it as my native tongue.
Yeah. Nope.
That's weird.
I just renamed it with an eye on the end, and nope.
What if? I quite like that with an eye on the end. That's a nice idea. So if I add that first, I can then set that. It looks suspiciously like what it's doing is it's forcing your native tongue to be one of the first 2 languages you put in.
Oh. Okay, I'll take Trade Tongue off then.
So because I put Solagiri in third,
right.
It wouldn't let me pick it. Taking the other 2 languages out, then putting Solagiri back in, or taking 2 languages out, putting Solagiri in, then let me select it as a native, but Republican no longer can be.
I mean, I didn't want to take it as native anyway, but it's nice to know we've sorted that out.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, in his case, he grew up there. So I'm actually going to jiggle these points around. I'm going to make his Republican slightly lower. I'm going to drop him down to 4. May converse in everyday conversation of an average nature, but rapid or sophisticated speech is still troublesome. Because I'm going to focus him a similar way to your ideas on your character's early dreams.
Yeah.
I'm going to focus him on writing. He's got the 2 ranks in craft writing. So I'm going to actually put his written Republican as better than his spoken Republican. And he has no written ranks in Trade Tongue. And I'm just deciding off the top of my head that Solagiri doesn't have a written form. So no written ranks in that either.
I'll take that out then.
So he's come out as 5 ranks in spoken Solagiri, 4 in spoken Republican, 5 in written Republican, and 3 in spoken Trade Tongue.
Okay, I've come out with 6 of each in written and spoken Republican. 2 in Solagiri, spoken.
Ooh, true fluency.
Yes. Basically grew up in it, so no reason not to. 2 in Solagiri on the spoke it at home. And 2 ranks in Trade Tongue because everybody else speaks it. Now, is there a written form of Trade Tongue? I'm assuming yes. If there isn't, I'll put a point in Solagiri.
I haven't given this guy any written Trade Tongue, but I think there probably is. What I will maybe do is limit the maximum possible written rank in Trade Tongue.
Okay.
And I may well limit the maximum possible spoken rank in Trade Tongue again. If we think of it as being a trading pigeon, that is a mishmash of elements of different languages, it's probably not sophisticated enough to get up to the higher levels. So, maybe a maximum of 4 ranks in written ability, possibly 5 or 6 in spoken ability, but because there may actually be somewhere, some multicultural location where Trade Tongue has become the native tongue. even though it started out as a trading mishmash.
You know what? Actually, I'm
But
pulling that written rank of Trade Tongue. I like the idea that he can understand the traders. He's never particularly got into needing to deal with it.
yeah,
And I'll put the third rank into Solagiri.
and I think just as
no,
a house rule, so to speak,
yeah,
I
sorry.
think what I'm probably also going to do is allow a certain amount of comprehension of trade tongue even without ranks, because it's a mishmash of other tongues.
Yeah.
So, for example, even if you have no ranks in written trade tongue, if you've got written Republican, you can probably get some of the simple things. And price boards probably look identical whether they're written in Republican or trade tongue. It's probably the same number system.
Oh yes, good point.
Things like that.
Sounds like where you were when you moved to the UK age 11. Because of course, not native English speaker. But yes, good point. Hadn't thought of that. Actually, I will leave it as one written trade tongue, and 2 spoken.
Okay. So yeah, while your father, who has only written Republican, can read things like price boards and so forth, put up by traders using trade tongue, he couldn't read an actual note.
No.
In trade tongue, it would have to be written in Republican.
Okay. So you could definitely getting into the the whole second generation translating for the grandparents and grandparents, aren't you? Okay. Generate statistics. Oh my god, we actually have to do the rolling. Oh.
Right, yes. Now I need to jump to the character creation and find out where I'm looking for generating the character stats. Section 2.5, apparently. Where is 2.5? 2.5. That's 2.4. So 2.5, generating stats. Okay, so stats in Rolemaster are on a percentile scale with a modifier attached to them. Again, D&D stole that utterly and shamelessly. 3 to 18 system, but then provides you with like +1, -1, what have you. Rolemaster was doing that since 1980, but on a percentile instead of a D20 scale. And when I'm saying D&D stole that, I'm not actually trying to be disparaging about D&D. What I'm saying there is that Monty Cook, who was one of the 3 core designers for 3rd edition Dungeons and Dragons, worked for many years on Rolemaster for Iron Crown Enterprises before he moved over to work on Dungeons and Dragons. And he took with him ideas from that game system that worked and applied them to Dungeons and Dragons, or at least suggested them, and they got brought into the fold. I'm reasonably certain that's how a lot of the core concepts of D&D 3rd edition came about. So our stats will be on a percentile scale, and we'll then have between -15 and +15 modifiers based on how high they are. We also have the stats more than once. We have a potential stat and we have a temporary stat. The potential stat is as high as that stat will go for you. Your temporary stat is what your stat is currently at. When you level up, you get a chance to improve your stats and work them towards their potentials. So characters don't start with the stats they're going to finish up with. To generate the stats, we are rolling a D100. For each stat, we roll a D100 3 times, re-rolling any value lower than 11 until a value of at least 11 is obtained. For each stat, the highest roll is their potential, the middle roll is their temporary stat, and the lowest roll is dropped.
Okay.
Now this has an option, I believe, to randomize your complete set of stats.
Okay.
You can press random set, and it will roll all of your stats.
Yeah.
But obviously, those are no longer what you necessarily want them to be.
Yeah.
Alternatively, you can roll and add them in for yourself.
Okay, good night, Chrono.
Night Chrono.
Okay, sorry, run that by me again, Fish. The highest is your potential. The lowest
the highest is your potential. The lowest is dropped.
Mm-hmm.
So roll 3 times, drop the lowest, And then of the other two, the high one is your potential stat, and the remaining one is your temporary stat.
Okay.
So, for example,
middle. Am I right?
That's just what I'm just trying to work. That's just rolling the three. It's not assigned them yet. It's this is just the set of 3 numbers for each stat.
Oh, okay.
As currently rolled. Then we have assigned stats is the next step on. So let me just skip on to assigned stats and see how this is going to work. I think. Right, yeah. So that now on the next page, it's now giving us our temporary and potentials. So taking the highest and the middle.
Right. Okay.
And then you can do some boosts at that point. So ignore that, effectively, to all intents and purposes, ignore the names on that, because I'm going to be fine with you swapping them around.
Okay.
And changing the values, provided you change both values, obviously.
Yeah.
So, for example, if I come back to this page, because it's on that page where you'll want to swap them around. I've got a really high quickness, but I would rather have a really high presence. As it is, I've got a really high presence as well, and the potential presence is higher. It's 100. So I'm not going to swap those over. What I might do is swap intuition and quickness, because his intuition is crap. Somehow I've managed to get 36, 36, 36. How did I roll 36 3 times for that one? Or how did the game roll? The software roll 36 3 times for that one. But I'm going to swap those over. I'm going to put my 95 quickness there, and my 36 into quickness. Then I am going to go 96 there, and 36 there. And then I don't really need to swap. I do need to swap the third one because I've got a 53 there. So
okay, so with the 3 columns
for the 36 as well.
The temporary is
the 3 columns, as far as I can tell, are the 3 rolls that you've actually made, not yet sorted. Okay. Then when you assign, it will drop the lowest and put the other 2 into temporary and potential accordingly. If you wish to move them around, I'm not going to require you to have rolled them in order. So swap them around before you click assign, and put them in the stats where you want them. So all I've done is I've swapped intuition and quickness. So he's slow but intuitive. And then when I click through, that's put me in there. I've got a 36 quickness potential and a 36 quickness temporary. So he's only 36, and it's as good as he's ever going to be.
I am rolling this manually, but I am rolling 6 dice because I've got 3 percentile sets.
Yep, so no problem.
Get that straight across. So that is okay.
And remember, ignore anything of less than 11 on any of the 3 rolls. Re-roll that if it's less than 11. Okay. This feels slightly cat-handed compared to the way earlier editions generated stats, but I prefer it to the standard system where they made it points-based.
Good point.
On a game like this, particularly with a percentile scale for stats, being able to pick the exact number by spending points on it just always felt very metagamey and min-maxy, because you can be looking at it and going, okay, well, if that's 84, it gives me this bonus, but if I put it up to 85, it gives me this bonus, which is better, so I'll spend the extra point.
Well, I do think that that's rather taking the mickey, because the 5 just went to a 98 on the reroll. Last one. I keep wanting to tab, and it isn't quite tabbing. Right. Okay. That's definitely.
And there are some boosts that you can apply after these have gone through.
Am I right in thinking memory?
Do you want to know what those are going to be so that you can think ahead, or for the moment are you just worried about what you're rolling?
Can I just check if memory and intuition are the most important for mentalism.
Let me check that for you.
Thank you. You know what? I've got to turn my lights on because no bloody
mentalism.
illumination in here.
Suggested stats: memory, presence, and reasoning.
Oh, memory, presence, and reasoning. Okay, I was thinking of one of the others. No worries. Memory, sorrow, and thorn. No, wait, hang on. Good. Blue die for the other blue.
So, yeah, you get to apply 2 modifiers, 2 boosts, after you've got your set of stats.
Yeah.
Which, any 2 of, including you can pick the same one twice, any 2 of replacing a stat's temporary and or potential with 56 and 78. So you can ditch a really bad stat in favor of a high average potential one.
Okay.
Replace your highest temporary stat with 90 and boost its potential by 10 to a maximum of 100.
Okay.
Or replace your second highest temporary stat with 85 and boost its potential by 10 to a maximum of 100. So you can go, I really want high presence. I'm going to put my highest into presence, but then I'm going to boost it to 90.
Yeah.
I could do that on this guy, for example. I've got an 87 rolled presence and 100 potential. I could boost that by the 3 points up to 90 if I wanted to. Okay. Except that it's not my highest stat. Because my highest stat is actually a rolled 95-96 on intuition.
Okay.
I can't boost the temporary on that because it's already higher than 90, but I could take it to 100 potential if I wanted to by applying one of my boosts to that. I think what I'm definitely going to do is I'm going to apply my quickness up to 56-78 instead of 36-36.
Yeah. Oh, that's 6 seconds.
Why is it letting me have a modifier?
Oh, for God's sake, I rolled 2 6s in the same trio. Good God. That's
and then
9.
The other mods
okay,
I can do, I've got a terrible agility, so I'm going to put that up to 56-78 as well. Yeah. Oh, then again, Constitution's low. Horrible. Maybe I should go for a better Constitution.
Okay, that's not staying here.
Now I'm going to go with agility because I think the low Constitution might explain why he chose not to stay among his own people.
No.
He's a little bit sickly, but intellectual, and those are not winning traits among the Solar Gear. So maybe that's why he decided to leave and go to the urban culture of the Inner Republic.
Yeah. Okay, that's not terrible. So that is.
While you are getting your stats rolled, I'm going to take a moment.
Okay.
To take a bio break. I will be back momentarily. I won't mute the sound, but I will go to an AFK screen.
Okie-doke. No worries. 27. Guess what's getting dropped from that? And we're on an ad break anyway, so that's excellent timing. Okay. Bloody hell. 90. Oh, wow. Okay. That's kind of awesome. That's a 90, 88, not an 88, 82. I'm 82. I'm on 82s. What's going on? And we roll because that's under 11. Excellent. Okay. Let me change you for dice that actually roll over 10. I have all the D10s in the universe. Come out. I should be rolling these onto camera or something. But, yeah, stuff it, trust me. Okay, so that one is... That's the second time I've rolled 8. Come on. Thank you. Oh, bloody hell. Okay, sublime to the ridiculous. That's ridiculous indeed. When 82 is the lowest that's going to get dropped from that array is a bit... Whoa. Right, okay, so that is 54. More like it.
If you can find the space for it, what you should probably have set up is that wonderful top-down camera
Yeah.
that you picked yourself up with a dice tray sitting underneath it.
Yes, and if I'd known that's what we were doing tonight, and I'd remembered that Rolemaster was random rolls.
Well, the previous edition wasn't. Standard system,
Yeah,
FRP, as I say, was points-based, which I never liked as much.
No. No, I'm just... There's one of these arrays. It's really tragic, Fish. Because it's 96, 90, 82.
Ooh.
I know. Okay, 88. 51.
How far through are you, just out of interest?
98. I'm doing the last two now.
Oh, right. In that case, I won't go and make a cup of tea.
I am going to rearrange some of these, but yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely, because I'm doing them in order as it is.
Yeah, I'm probably being quite generous with the letting you rearrange, given that we have the boost system in place for this. But I don't think it's unreasonable. I'm
assuming, by the way, the rearrange is just
decide on how much rearrangement I'm going to allow. Yeah, swap the whole thing.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
All three rolls for a particular stat get swapped for all three rolls for a different stat.
Okay.
I might limit it. Yeah, I'm not going to. Don't worry about it for now. Just rearrange as desired. But I might think about imposing something like a swap 2 or up to 3 maybe stats over. But that's something to think about at a later date. For now, just do whatever you want.
I should have done my camera. I should have done the top down.
Did you just roll 100? How many hundreds on one stat did you
just rolled a 99. But that's okay
99.
Because I've rolled 97, 98, 90. Not on the same row, obviously. For God's sake. Oh, okay. So if you tap through,
I can't believe I rolled somehow. I mean, I did it using the software randomizer rather than real dice, but I can't believe I rolled 36 for all 3 rolls on one stat. I don't know how that happened.
Okay.
It should not. The odds against it are astronomical.
This bottom row of strength, which is probably not staying a strength. 99, 94. Let's see what the third one is. Re-roll because that's a 6.
Oh. You know what I've just found?
What?
That I had not noticed.
God, it's a 99. No, that's got to be a 9. Yes, 99.
The ability to swap the stats actually is in the rules.
Oh, is it?
But I had missed it because it's in a different. It's not where I expected it to be. I was thinking you swap the stats around first, then apply the boosts. The way the rules as written work is you apply your 2 boosts, then you can make up to 2 swaps, switching the temporary potential pair of one stat with the temporary potential of another stat. So I actually did that, but I did it in the wrong place, if you see what I mean.
Right.
On mine.
Okay.
So let's stick with it that way. If don't move them around, then
I haven't moved anything.
Take them if you haven't moved them yet, take them in the order that you've rolled them. Swap onto assigned statistics, and we'll deal with the swaps there.
Holy crap! Have you got my feed up by any chance?
I haven't. No, I really should have.
My strength roll. 99, 94, 99.
Wow.
That's going into memory, I suspect. Because memory is pants by comparison. Okay, assign stats.
So hit assign stats, and that will move them all over to the next page.
Okay,
and we'll assign the temporary and potentials based on what you've got.
Right.
You now have, first up, you have 2. It says first up, but I think it doesn't matter which way around you do it.
Okay.
You can
I know.
you can swap stats twice.
Right.
And you do this just by drag and dropping. Click on the actual numbers themselves.
Right.
And it will take the temporary potential as a pair, drag them to where you want them to be, drop them, and it
Okay.
should swap it with that stat. So you can do that
So
twice, swap over 2 sets of stats.
Mentalism, you said memory, reasoning,
You will want a high presence first and
presence.
memory and reasoning next.
Right. Well, that's a no-brainer then. That ridiculous one's got to go into presence. Reasoning has definitely got to change.
Remembering that your boosts specifically apply either to the top 2 stats, to boost the top 2, or to boost something low up to an average level.
Yeah. Okay.
The boosts, actually, it will show you. You can see the boost column is showing you what boosts are applicable to a stat, what you can get. So it'll show you what they boost to, and you can pick 2 of those. And you can do that before or after you've swapped them around. I'm easy on that.
So if I took the boost on presence, why would I do that? It would put it to 90 and 100. So it would drop
to get the 100 potential if you don't already have it. If it's already at 9, if it's already above 90, it shouldn't modify that one. It should. Oh yeah, it does show it as 90 to 100. I'm just going to press the button and see whether it does, because I can remove it afterwards. But it shouldn't change the 90. It does.
Okay, noted.
That's not supposed to be how it works. That is a flaw in the software. As written, no, you know what? I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Replace your highest temporary stat with 90 and boost its potential by 10 to a maximum of 100. Raise the potential to the temporary value if the potential is lower. I don't see how the potential can be lower.
No. Okay, so I'm going to change.
But yeah, those are hard swaps. Those are not. You can't boost the potential without lowering the temporary if you do that. So unless you really want the potential 100,
I don't.
Then those aren't worth taking.
Okay, so that would only put my memory up to 56. That's kind of not great. That would put my reasoning up to 56
with a potential 78. 56 is a +1, by the way. That is slightly above average. I mean, +1 on a percentile scale. +1 on a D100 is not a great deal, but most stats use. I'm hoping it's the same in this edition, because I might be talking rubbish. Most stats use the modifiers from 3 attributes.
Yeah.
So, for example, shooting a bow is probably agility, strength.
Yeah.
So in my case, I've got +1 agility, +5 strength, which will give me a total of +7. 5 for the strength, and then 1 twice for the agility when shooting a bow.
I have 1 swap left to do me. And it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of what. Because my reasoning is 54, my memory is 47. I don't care about the potential at this point, that's not relevant.
Yeah. What's your potential memory?
Potential memory, 82. Potential reasoning, 97.
If you went with the boost on memory, it would lower the potential, but up the.
No, it leaves the potential intact.
Temporary, wouldn't it?
Memory, it would put me up to 56, 82.
I forgot. You don't have to. If you're modifying the top 2 stats, those modify both. If you're modifying anything using the 56, 78, you only have to apply one of them, so you don't have to lower anything. It'll just get you the. So yeah, your potential would stay, but your memory would go up. So if you don't swap in, whichever one you don't swap in, you can get that 56 out of it. So I'd be inclined to say swap in the one that is slightly higher, or swap in the one with the lower potential. Maybe. because the other one's got a good potential to get to, and you can boost the temporary, and then work towards the potential during play.
Okay, so my agility is 83, my constitution's, my empathy is 56. Please don't ask. Apparently, I can't read anyone who isn't scaly. Although it's still not terrible. Intuition is 87. Memory is 47. Of course, the ones I want high are the two that I rolled relatively pants on.
Yeah.
Presence is 99. We're leaving that. That's what I swapped in. That's staying there.
Yeah,
Quickness is 90.
Awesome. Wow.
With a 96 potential.
Quickness is great in combat because it is the basis of your defensive bonus, which subtracts from opponents to hits. So in terms of D&D, that's where your dex bonus to armor class comes in.
Is self-discipline what all your skill points come off?
Skill points in this edition don't come off stats at all.
Oh, in that case.
They are a set number. Self-discipline, however, is used for things like resisting fear.
Oh. Okay, I'm going to put self-discipline of 88/98 into my memory. And then I will boost the self-discipline.
The temporary, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Then I will do, because then that will put my self-discipline to 56/82. You say you get 2 boosts?
You get 2 boosts. If you look on the right-hand side, you've got a little box showing you how many boosts and swaps you have taken and how many you have got. So
I don't want to.
On mine, it's showing 2 and 0 of 2 because I did the swaps before I got here.
Oh, okay. It's a no-brainer then. There's no point doing the 99/99 because that will just drop it to 90/100. The quickness is already 90/96. Going to 85/100 is counterproductive. So I'll take it on reasoning then. So that will put me to 90. It will only give me a 2-point boost, but it's a 2-point boost, and will put me up to 56/97.
Yeah.
So, doddle.
Cool.
And I have racial penalties.
Once you've done, any swaps and a mentalist solar gear is an interesting choice because there is that -2 presence.
I had not realised.
And memory on there. You then, once you've done your 2 swaps and your 2 boosts, you also get 2 stat gain rolls.
Okay.
The gain column is showing you what die you would roll at this difference.
Okay.
So, for example, my memory is 61 out of 70, so I get to roll a d10.
Right, yeah.
However, my intuition is 95 out of 96. I get to roll a d3 -1. And it can't go over the potential. You can either roll I think you can either roll a real die and type it into the box.
Yeah.
Or you can just press the little butterfly or whatever it is next to the box to make a random roll.
Yeah, I refuse to have a butterfly making these decisions for me. Presence obviously has no button because 99/99. Don't be silly. It's already out.
Yeah, it's already there.
Right. So
I've taken a stat gain roll on Constitution and on Quickness.
Okay, it makes sense to boost my memory first, which is a d6. Because although the difference is not wild, I've got that -2 penalty. I'm trying
trying to get shot off. Yeah.
If I can at least get to a d2, if I can get 2 off it, then that will at least put me back up to what I rolled. You know. Who's eating all my d6? Oh, there we go. Right. Okay, so the d6 is. I like real dice, by the way. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I am absolutely cool with that.
Okay, so my memory,
as I have said on other occasions.
Yeah, I know. You trust me. Okay, that's better. Bloody hell! I only put a 4 in.
I know that you are just
It just got
phenomenally
my...
lucky. As I say, last night in D&D, I was rolling on your behalf, and you were still getting the lucky rolls. Where if I
Fish,
rolled them for me, they'd have been shite.
I am confused.
Are you? What are you confused
Yes,
by?
I just typed the 4 into
Yeah.
the slot, and it put up my memory from 47 to 92.
I am also confused. I have no idea what the hell happened there.
I mean, did see me. It's not a look. It is an actual number, isn't it? It's not a lookup table.
Yeah. I mean, I just hit the random button on mine, so I haven't used putting the number in. I'm assuming you can just put the number in.
Yeah, it lets you.
Oh, hang on. I may have just been overgenerous.
Oh, okay.
Did I miss? Yeah, I did. I've given us the stat gain rolls in addition to the 2 boosts, but actually it's one of the boost options is to make 2 stat gain rolls instead of boosting.
All right.
Since I've done that, we'll leave it for these characters and we'll just accept that they've taken an extra stat gain roll. But if you could not be 90 something, put it back to what it was, but is there a little down arrow next to it that swaps it back?
No.
Under the boost.
Yeah.
Under the boost column, things that you have boosted should have a
yeah.
down arrow and the original number to let you undo what's just been done.
Yeah. Okay.
So you should be able to click that and reverse that weird. What's it showing? That was memory?
Oh, no, it is. It's all right. It's all right. It's all right. It's okay. I'd swapped it out and it hadn't updated the swap yet.
Ah.
It's fine because I'd updated to 88, but the 47 had gone elsewhere and I'd already upped that on the boost. Okay, no, that's fine. The self-discipline was 47. I was getting very confused because number-wise on the screen it went from 47 to 92, and I was like, "No, it's not +4." I don't care how bad your maths is.
So we've both slightly cheated and taken an extra boost, but we'll accept that.
And I've got a second.
That was just a little bit of a glitch, and this character's likely to get soloed, so probably could do with the extra benefit.
So the other one.
Take the second stat gain roll since we're doing it that way. It's
gonna have to go into self-discipline, really, isn't it? Because that's the -2, the other -2 from race.
Yeah. Bear in mind, as far as I can tell, there is no rule that stops you taking 2 stat gain rolls on the one stat if you
I know.
to.
Thing is, memory and self-discipline.
Potential and temporary.
Yeah, memory and self-discipline both have -2. I'm just trying to ameliorate both of those.
Yeah.
So I will take the self-discipline. So I've got a D10.
Yeah.
Based on the screen, it's only an extra half boost. If a boost is 2 stat gains.
A boost is 2 stat gains, so each stat gain roll counts as half a boost.
Yeah.
So when you've taken the second one, that will then say it's 3 boosts out of 2.
Yeah. Okay. And that is. Oh, come here. Right. Okay.
Okay. On the subject of real dice being cool, I printed this today, which actually I'm going to swap to a bigger camera so you can see it better. It is a 3D printed thermal detonator, which is a dice cup.
Did it print out okay?
It printed out fine, yeah.
Brilliant.
Makes a nice dice rattle because it's a plastic dice cup.
Yep.
Just got a single poly set in there at the moment.
You're probably going to want to line that with, I don't know, felt or something.
But yeah, I will probably line that with something. But yeah, very happy with that.
I can see that.
I will be printing one for Drat because it's cool, and I
Yes.
think she
Yes.
wants one.
Think nothing. Yes. If you have white, I would take it. But
Yeah,
yeah. Okay. So
yeah. I
that's
have
the
actually.
stats.
I've got black in there at the moment, but I've got a white reel that I can plug in.
Yeah.
Or, in fact, I've got that translucent one.
Oh,
You could
that'd be
get a
funky.
translucent one if you wanted, but I think I've got a white one I can use.
Yeah. I mean, translucent would be my choice, but only if I was paying.
So if
But
those are
I'd have
done,
to pay you for the filament. Balance.
it's a cheap translucent.
Oh, in that case.
Talents. Right, now, if
Okay.
you're a human at this point, you're there going, oh my god, so many options.
Yeah.
But because we're solar gear, we
Yep.
only have 2 points.
Hmm.
So that means to take anything, we pretty much are going to need to take floors to go along with them. So
Bloody
characters start
hell.
with 60 development points each level, plus a number of bonus based on race. Up to 25 bonus DP are spent each level until they're all spent. We only have 2.
Hmm.
Let me find the talents chapter so that we can read up on how talents work and what you're allowed to take and what you're not allowed to take. Purchasing talents. Talents cost development points just like skills. However, the costs are fixed for all professions and they cost more than skills do. Floors cost negative development points, which means they give back points which may be spent on other things. They may be taken during character generation or as part of a level advancement.
Mm-hmm.
However, if the flaw does not hinder the character, it cannot be taken. If a player asks for his fighter to be able to take inept power development 1, he must actually take a rank in power development.
Mm-hmm.
Talents or flaws may be modified to have only an effect in certain situations. Don't worry about that. So yeah, there are a number of different talents. They're split into different categories. Hopefully they're split into categories in here. Yes, they are. So for example, there are magical talents, which gives us eloquence, extended reach, graceful recovery, etc. And if you click on one, it will give you a description of what it
I
does.
will.
So quick
Okay.
caster, for example, you're particularly adept at quickly casting spells from one of your spell lists. The number of action
Hmm.
points, normally 2 to 4, required to cast a spell from the list is 2 to 3, or 2 for tier 2. Now, if you want to take any of these, obviously you're going to need floors,
Yes.
things worth negative numbers to get back. And as I say, they can also be learnt. Unlike the previous edition, these aren't restricted to character creation. In standard system stroke FRP, you picked these things during character creation, and I think there may have been some rules on picking them up later, but it wasn't easy. Now they're handled using the development points as choosing your skills. So you can choose to develop these talents at a later date. I maintain GM veto. I'm going to say, no, you can't suddenly learn that. That makes no sense. Where did you get that prehensile appendage, for example? But if it's reasonable for you to learn it. So, for example, if you've got a character who has a tail and you just want to learn how to use it as a prehensile tail,
Yeah.
I'll let you buy that at a later date. But a human suddenly gaining a
Inglorious.
prehensile tail, not so much.
Inglorious failure. I'm sorry. I'm going to have to take that. When you suffer a spell failure, your spell failure roll is increased by 5.
Bear in mind, spell failures are dangerous.
Yes,
So
but that's
that
only
could
if you fuck
potentially
up.
kill you
Yeah, there's that.
if you fuck up. But yeah, no, that's perfectly acceptable.
I
I'm
don't
not
like
sure how many
using
tiers of that you're allowed.
I'm taking one, mate, at the
You look.
moment.
Magical. Weirdly, oh, there it is. No, it just says per tier. So have we got a standard rule on how many tiers can be taken? Many talents give a benefit that cost in multiple tiers, with the least powerful tier being assigned a Roman numeral 1, I, while additional tiers are more effective and more expensive as they go up in Roman numerals. Most talents have 5 or fewer tiers, though some may have up to 10. When the talent is taken, the tier must be specified and paid for. That does not say. So I am going to assume if it doesn't say otherwise, that it can be up to 10. But taking 10 ranks of Inglorious Failure would be terrifying, because you have plus 50 on a percentile scale to all spell failure rolls.
Yeah, that's not.
That's how you get up to those 300 you turn to ash results, isn't it?
Okay, I am going to put spatial skills in and take that.
Yeah.
If spells from one of your spell lists work at a
save those 2 points for skills.
I'm sorry, I have a couple of specific ideas, and I promise I won't take long.
Yeah. I am going, however, to be terrible and make you multitask very briefly.
Okay.
I would like you to come up with a name for your father.
Ooh.
Because I've got to the point where I'm now saving this character file, because it saves at the end of adolescent development at this point. Then you level up to level 1.
Okay.
So while you're doing this, have a think about what your character's father is called. Or think about what your character is called, worst case, and
father's name.
Create something that sounds vaguely similar.
Father's name, Stinius. S-T.
How are you spelling that?
I-N-E.
E-U-S. Okay. There we go. Character saved. So on my screen, I'm now going to proceed to his character sheet and sort of show that a little bit. Let's go to a smaller version of me so that we can see the character sheet properly. So we can see he's currently level 0, because I haven't yet leveled him up to 1. But at level 0, he's already got 38 hit points, but no power points. He has minus 12 power points. Now, that doesn't mean he's actually got a negative number of power points. That's what his power point development rank comes out as, because there's a negative modifier for having 0 ranks. So in real terms, that's actually 0 power points. When I buy at least 1 rank, he will have power points to be able to use spells with. Something that will be essential, given he is a mentalist like his son. His recovery modifier is ×1. He has no modifiers to initiative, offensive bonus, moving maneuvers, spell casting. All these things will come in later. His base armor type is 4 because of the scales as a Solingen.
Yeah.
And he is medium size.
I've just noticed wings are an option on creature physical.
Yeah, no, I'm not going to let you.
Oh. I mean, obsession with dragons.
You would need to give a damn good justification for having wings.
I was thinking wings would be a damn good justification for why did this artist decide to leave his home with his...
I suppose it would. And you got me half persuaded now. So this is obviously going to be a racial trait. Yeah. So let's look it up under racial.
Yeah, it's creature physical.
Wings, okay. I can only find wings vestigial here. But I may be looking in the wrong place.
Wings folding. Creature physical. Right down at the bottom. Wings.
You know why I can't find it? Because I'm looking in the wrong place.
Oh,
because it comes from creature lore, not the core rulebook.
Oh, sorry.
That's why I can't find it. So let me just take a look at creature lore and read up on the talents in there. Creature talents. Physical. Yeah, that's why it says creature lore, physical talent.
Sorry.
So it's in the game. Let's have a look. Wings folding. Creature's wings from the wings flying talent fold. Right, so that modifies wings that you already have.
Right, okay.
Wings folding. You have to have wings flying before you can do that. There is, however, there is still in core lore. If I find, let's put this up on screen. There is the wings vestigial, which doesn't let you fly, but does give you a bonus to jumping.
What's that under?
That's under racial in core lore.
There it is. Oh, there we go. Yes. Plus 10 bonus to jumping,
Wings,
and when
wings,
using
wings,
acrobatics, reduce the impact of
wings.
a fall.
Yeah, there we go. So you have
Okay,
small
top
wings
10.
which are not adequate for flight. So yeah, that still justifies the fascination with dragons, that you're kind of a throwback maybe
Yeah.
to an earlier stage of Solar Gear evolution.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got these vestigial wings that just let you, narratively speaking, they let you glide. Mechanically speaking, they give you a bonus to jumping and acrobatics, and
Yeah.
the representation of that is that you're going that bit further because you're gliding part of that way. So I might, for example, allow a really difficult roll, a really difficult jumping roll when falling.
Mm-hmm.
So normally once you're already in mid-flight, there's not a lot you can do, but in your case, you can actually manipulate your flight in ways that people without wings can't do. Even though you
Yeah.
can't make yourself fly, you could steer with it and let you make a roll that would be difficult, but wouldn't even be possible without the wings.
Going to take elemental susceptibility. Not because
Particularly
lizards.
resistant or susceptible to one of.
Yeah, I want to take the susceptibility to. I'm wondering about electricity, but I will go for cold ice if you'd rather.
Well, cold ice would obviously
Make more
tie in
sense.
with the whole lizard
Yeah, I
thing.
was thinking
But
less
if you
lizard,
want
more
to be
dragon.
susceptible, if you want to be susceptible to electricity stroke light, then I am absolutely fine with that. I will warn you that shock bolt is one of the more common attack spells in Rolemaster.
I know.
So
I had
you're
remembered
probably
that,
more likely to be hit with electricity attacks than you are with either cold or heat, to be honest. But yeah, that's absolutely. I'm absolutely fine with you taking that. Gets you some points to spend on other things like wings.
Well, I am currently paying off the 15 points I've bought. So
what did you buy in addition to wings?
spatial skills.
Oh yes,
Under
spatial
magic.
skills.
So
Spatial skills. Spells from one of your spell lists work at a greater distance than normal, and their range is increased by 50% per tier. So yeah, obviously I'm not going to make you choose a spell list now. You can choose a spell list once you've got some.
No, I think it's going to be probably at the moment. I'm thinking presence. Would just make sense to me.
But based on the time aspect and the fact that it is getting on for midnight, I'm obviously still going to be here. I'm up all night, so we can carry on as long as you want. But in terms of you getting some sleep, I think once you've picked your talents, it will then move on to saving the character.
Yeah.
Which is a good place to stop, and then we can level him up to level 1 off stream or at a later date. I mean, one of these characters at least should be leveled up to level 1 on stream just to show how it works, I feel. But that doesn't necessarily have to be done now, and it doesn't necessarily have to be your character.
You are difficult to awaken and receive a minus 25 to perception rolls to be awoken. The difficulty of the maneuver is set by the GM.
I do find fascinating that the core book has a typo on that. Heavy Sleeper's description. Oh, no, sorry. Heavy Sleeper and Light Sleeper have one write-up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so as a heavy sleeper, as a light sleeper, you receive, but that's because it then carries on as a heavy sleeper. So it's just put them both into a single paragraph with the two costs listed separately.
Okay, so that will get me 5 points back. So I'm looking for one disadvantage, 1 point of flaw. Okay, I wish I could order.
That presumably I would have already taken into account, I suppose, the 2 points that you got for free.
Yeah, it does. It's quite nice. It keeps the running total. So, I've currently spent 1 point of my 2.
Yeah. This is the first time I've properly sat down and used.
Oh, hang on. I've got 1 point advantage coming to me then.
Electronic Rolemaster Assistant. Oh, so in fact, yeah, you had 1 point.
Yeah.
You had 2 points to begin with, It's
Yes.
spent those 2 points, but then you've taken back disadvantages, and you're now 1 point. Well, bear in mind that can be spent on skills, so that can be a 1 point skill if you
Yeah,
you
this is
don't
true.
have to make these match now.
No, I know.
It can
I
be
know, I
spent
know, I
on
know.
skills anywhere within the first couple of levels.
I am literally just
Yeah,
looking
first
to
time
see.
I've used Era properly, and certainly for character creation, I think it's very good. If you're using the book to guide you through what everything means, it makes character creation for Rolemaster so much easier.
Yeah.
Because it does so much of the tracking things for you. It's not a difficult character creation. I mean, I've played games like GURPS where you've got 450 points, say, in a GURPS Supers game to purchase all kinds of bits and pieces, and you're there forever with 14 pieces of paper working it all out. Great game, but character creation is awful.
GCB
The same
was
goes for Hero
excellent.
System. Really expensive, really difficult, complicated character creation. For both of those games, I highly recommend GURPS Character Assistant for GURPS and Hero Designer for Hero to help you through.
Yeah.
Era, this one, the core software is free. They let you basically grab the software to look at it, and it contains something like 3 professions and a couple of tables from Rolemaster Classic. Then you pay for the books.
Right.
So in my case, I've bought all 4 of the currently available Rolemaster Unified books. So I've got everything that's been published for Rolemaster Unified. I've got in Era. So if it exists, it's in this software for us to use. And they're not massively expensive. I can't remember off the top of my head how expensive they are, but of course I have got a web page, a web browser open, so
I gave you
Stenius,
didn't I? Stenius, rather. Your character name.
Yes, you did indeed.
Okay.
So my prices are in English because I'm English, but looking at this Rolemaster Creature Lore, £18.44 in PDF. Viewing the bundle, I can get the PDF and the Roll20 thing as a bundle for apparently cheaper than buying the book. That's quite impressive. That must be reduced because I already own the PDF.
Yeah.
Because it's saying, you will save. So I think it's like 25 quid. What I was hoping for was the Era version there, and it's not shown me that yet. So let's click through and find Rolemaster for Era. Core Lore. There's Core Lore. Where's Core Lore for Era? Okay. Era for Rolemaster Core Lore. So there we go. £7.34 to get the core rulebook in this software. So for your basic character creation, if you just want it as a character creator, you pick up Era for free and spend under £8 to add the core lore, and that gives you, I think that's not an unreasonable cost to simplify character creation, to be honest.
No, that's excellent.
I'm reasonably happy with that. And there are additional functions that we haven't yet explored to see how well it will work to replace a virtual tabletop.
Yeah.
But based on just character creation, this makes me much more hopeful about being able to run Rolemaster, various editions of Rolemaster, if I spend the money on them, as on-stream games.
Yeah.
If only because people will have access to their character sheets through this server and be able to roll things, update their characters, level up, things like that, without a lot of hassle, and with me being able to see their characters as well, because they'll technically be stored on my computer.
Yeah.
You can export a copy and save it on your machine, but it'll be saved on the server, which is my PC, in other words. So I will have everybody's characters, and I'm really looking forward to getting a chance to play this, to try soloing your character when he is finished.
No, I'm perfectly happy with that.
I really want to play this as a group game.
Well done, Elliot.
I really want. I'm going to start out. Oh yes, well done. Character sheets, very important. I will say that. Let's go take a quick side into character sheets. When I look at a new game, and I look at a lot of games, the first thing I do when if I get access to a physical copy to look at of a game is I look for the character sheet, because you can learn a lot about a game from a character sheet. when you see what the character sheet looks like, it gives you a good idea about what the game's going to be. I mean, you look at this character sheet and you immediately say, that is a game that a lot of players don't want to play. Because, you know, if they're there, they're powered by the apocalypse or whatever games, and they're looking for 4 stats and as little else on the sheet as possible, they're going to look at that looks a little bit like somebody built it in Excel and panic. But I love games like this. So I look at that and I think, yeah, that's what I want to play.
I have had some distinctly disappointing experiences when a game I have been gagging for finally comes out, or when, you know, I get hold of it and I zip to the character sheet and it's like, oh, was this a Friday afternoon?
Yeah.
And the rest of the game could be cracking, and then the character sheet looks like, you know, you had your kid do it in 10 minutes.
Yeah. And I mean, anything from Palladium Games, their character sheets to this day, their character sheets are still done using essentially a word processor. Yeah. Yeah. There's no layout, no boxes. It's literally just text and an underline to write on top of for all their character sheets. Still to this day, 20 years after Rifts came out, they're still doing that. No, about 30 years after Rifts came out, they're still doing that.
It's not the easiest to sell.
It's really off-putting. So yeah, as I was saying, I'm looking forward to soloing this character, but I would really like to give the game a proper layout, test out with a group, and your character, a proper opportunity to go out, get out with a group. So I'm going to be looking for players. Now, for people I already know, I would like to play on stream. But if anybody seeing this fancies giving Rolemaster a go, but doesn't want to be on stream, that's cool. Get in touch with me on the Hint Discord server and say, I'd like to play that, please. Because it doesn't always have to be on stream. I can solo Drut's character on stream and have him have adventures with other characters off stream. Whether it's because you don't want to be on stream or whether it's because I just don't know you, because I want to be more careful this time around. When I was streaming before, we didn't really give much consideration to what a guest on stream, what damage they could cause by playing up on stream on your channel. And we got lucky. Nobody did cause us any trouble.
I have seen.
But I want to be a bit more careful this time around. So I basically want a chance to play with anybody. I'm not going to play on stream with someone for the first time. I want to play with them off stream first and get a feel for them before doing anything on stream. But I'm happy to do that off stream gaming with people through the Hint Discord or my own Discord, and then if they want to at a later date, bring them on to the stream. And I'm also fine, people who want to give the game a go, I'm fine to do pre-gen characters or to go through character creation. As you can see, it can take a long time. If you really go into the character creation, it can take a long time because there's a lot of options to run through. But a lot of those options don't necessarily need to be detailed too much if you watch this video, because you've already had them. But yeah, I would definitely very much like to, and I would be happy to play with you, Alia. Yeah, that would be great. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to finally getting to play some Rolemaster.
Yeah. Stivas is saved.
Stivas. Lovely.
Stivace. Clearly going with initial word name element from the father.
So if I go back to here and go to adventuring, first thing I can do is I can remove this test character. There's a button here for removing them, I'm sure.
You delete Stivas, I will hurt you. I'm just saying.
Actually, it might be under manage elsewhere. So let's instead, we'll ignore that and we'll just press plus, load from server. We have got Stinius and we have got Stivas. There we go. They are now in my party. Woohoo. And I can click on them and it gives me some little buttons like making a resistance roll, making an attack, casting a spell, quick casting a spell, making a maneuver roll. Character status brings up basic character sheet stuff. So let's do this for Stivas rather than Stinius. We better. There we go. Stivas, who has 44 hit points, 6 power points. That's cool. You got power points
I
before
have.
getting to first level. I didn't. I got -12 on my power points. Yeah.
I have no idea when I got my
You
PowerPoints.
put a point into. Yeah, you've got point in PowerPoint developments is somewhere that I apparently didn't get. You've got
Okay.
+24 quickness modifier for your defensive bonus. So your total defensive bonus is 24. This means when anyone rolls to attack you, they roll, add their offensive bonus, and subtract 24 for the fact that you're trying to get out of the way.
Yeah, he's
You,
nippy.
yeah, there are also parrying rules in this game, so it is possible for you to use a part of your offensive bonus to further reduce attacks against you. That's how the parry rules work.
Yeah.
Got no stuns or anything on you at the moment because obviously we're not actually playing. You're 84 by default because that's what your skin is. So that means that when attacks are made against you, they're rolled against armor type 4. Let me quickly jump back to core law and go to the combat tables for a moment.
Okay.
Attack tables. Here we go. Let's have a quick look at arming sword. That's a good place to start because we can take a look at this and see how the numbers are working out based on armor type 4. Give you an idea of how that will protect you. So at armor type 4, to do damage to you at all, a character has got to roll a total of 71 or above.
Okay.
That starts doing hit point damage against armor type 4. Criticals come in at 98. So it's got to be a reason. Especially, you're applying -24 to this, so it's got to be a reasonable roll.
Yeah.
I did work up some bandit thug stats for before creature law came out, which gave me monsters to fight. I worked up some bandit thug stats as level 1 bandit thugs. Level 1 is a newbie. Level 1 is seriously, I am essentially a child. I've just become a man and I'm out there being a bandit for the first time. So these are crap bandits, but they worked out with a primary melee bonus of +16. So they're adding 16 and subtracting 24. So straight away, you're completely obliterating all of their offensive bonus with your quickness bonus. They're rolling at a penalty. And to do a critical against you, they've got to get a total of 98. So that means they are rolling basically 90 or so minimum on percentile dice to get critical damage against you at armor type 4. At armor type 1, criticals kick in at 83. So that's the advantage you've got for being armored. The other thing, the advantage it gives you is that at 83 against armor type 1, which is basically no armor, that's a slash critical straight away. They're coming in and slashing big holes in you.
Oh, good.
Armor type 4, your first 2 criticals between 98 and 103 are 9 hit points and a crush critical. So instead of cutting into you, they're just battering you with that. So that's bruised and broken ribs rather than being run through for those first couple of crits, because the scales are resisting penetration by the weapon. That's the way combat in Rolemaster works. That it's not just I've got a higher armor class, it's harder for you to damage me. It also affects the type of damage that you take, because weapons might, on a lower crit, weapons might be converting their slashing damage to bludgeoning damage, essentially. I've got rules like that in Obsession as well, where if you don't achieve penetration, then your damage is converted entirely to bludgeoning. But if you have a high enough penetration value, then it runs through and still does the stabby or slashy damage. These are the kind of complicated rules that a lot of gamers don't care about, but for some of us, it's nice to be able to get into that level of detail. If you're plowing through hordes of orcs, you don't want to be messing around with that kind of stuff. Instead, this tends to be a game where you're more worried about this is a one-on-one fight between you and an orc, and your mate and his orc, and your other mate and their orc. And rather than, here are 4 orcs that I'm fighting while Bob over there is dealing with another 3. Because it's quite a lethal combat system, and it just has a different feel to it. And both feels are good. It's just what you want to play at any given time.
Yeah. Okay. So, I think there we will be calling it. So, thank you very much, Fish.
I think so.
This has been educational and interesting, and bizarre that We ended up doing it when we should be doing liminal, but never mind. Stuff happens. We'll sort
Yeah,
liminal.
it's
Liminal will
something
happen.
that I have been, yeah, something I've been wanting to do for ages, and
Yeah.
I was glad to get a time slot to finally get it done.
No, absolutely fine
Because
with it.
once you've taken that first step and got as far as like we've created the first character, that
Yeah,
kind of encourages you to want to get on and do things.
it does.
And yeah, and I'm really looking forward to this. I've made a
Okay.
start on a world. I've
Yeah.
actually fractal terrained a world. I need to go through the one day world builder and turn that into a set of maps
Cool.
for actual play.
Right. So, I am going to mute you on my stream, Fish. Thank you very much. So I can do my outro.
And I shall do the same to you on my stream.
We're
Thank
fine.
you
We're
for
fine.
spending your time with me this evening, and
That's
thank you
great.
for finally letting me go through at least character creation for Rolemaster and rant a little bit about how cool a system Rolemaster is
Yeah.
and that more people
No
should be
worries.
playing it.
Catch you in a bit, Fish.
Catch you later.
Right. Right. So now we've got rid of him. No, thank you very much for watching. I hope you found this interesting. Um, Tomorrow I will be doing the final chapter of The Phoenix and the Carpet. And assuming I can hive off the time, I will also be letting you know just how long the kids from that book should be going away for. And I don't mean on holiday. And then Tuesday, servers notwithstanding, I will be doing a first release day look at FBC Firebreak, which is the new single or three-player shooter from Remedy, set in the world of Control. It's basically a whole heap of troubleshooters sorting out control problems when they are not Jesse, and therefore not empowered and doing incredibly well. Um, I think it looks like it's going to be good, and it looks like it's going to play very well. Um, so yeah, we shall see. And then Thursday I will be back on the Thaumaturge. So that's my week, looking a little bit on the busy side. So hope to see some of you tomorrow. You have little context what the current book is. It's the very tail end of a children's classic, British children's classic from 1904. So give small children, not small children, you give children access to a go anywhere wishing carpet and a snotty phoenix from 2,000 years earlier. And hilarity ensues, mostly by setting fire to things. So, I will bid you all good night, and thank you very much. I hope to see you this week. Bye bye.